I was lying on the cold cement floor when I heard screaming, my own voice, begging my stepsister Shen Baozhu to let go of my jade pendant. This pendant was the only thing my mother left me before she died. But Baozhu didn't care. She wanted to sell it and buy fabric for a new dress. She grabbed my hands and tried to rip it away from me. "Your mother's been dead for years," she spat. "What do you need this junk for?" I held on with everything I had. My knuckles turned white. But Baozhu was bigger and stronger than me. She shoved me hard. I stumbled backward, and my lower back slammed into the corner of a table. Before I could recover, she came at me again. I dodged to the side, but tripped over a stool. I fell backward, and the back of my head cracked against the table corner. Everything went black. But here's the thing, I'm not really Yi Xiaoxiao. Or, at least, I wasn't always her. In my first life, I was an office worker who died saving a kid who ran a red light. In my second life, I was a cultivator in the immortal realm. I spent 1,000 years training, fighting, and climbing my way to the top. I was finally about to ascend to the heavens when the tribulation lightning struck me down and threw my soul into this body. Are you kidding me? That was the first thing I thought when I woke up. My head was pounding. I reached back and felt dried blood crusted in my hair. Then the memories of this body's original owner flooded into my mind like a wave. Her father, Shen Zhengwo, was a workshop director at the machinery factory. Her real mother died in a fire while trying to save important documents. Only 6 months later, her father married a woman named Wang Xiufan, claiming he needed someone to take care of his young daughter. Wang Xiufan brought her own son and daughter into the family. After that, the original Yi Xiaoxiao became the household servant. She did all the chores. She got beaten and yelled at by her step-siblings. They took whatever they wanted from her. And today, Baozhu decided she wanted the jade pendant. It took me a full 15 minutes to sort through all these memories and understand my situation. I, a powerful immortal who had cultivated for over 1,000 years, got blasted by heavenly lightning into the body of a skinny, mistreated girl living in 1970s China. And the spiritual energy in this world was so thin, I could barely feel it. Heaven must be playing a joke on me, I muttered. I sat up slowly and looked around. The room was small and plain. Old tables and chairs. A red-flowered metal thermos on the table. A few enamel cups printed with the words, "Labor is glorious." On the wall hung several awards, all given to my so-called father for being an advanced worker. Then I looked down at myself. A faded floral shirt, washed so many times the color was almost gone. Blue pants with patches on the knees. Torn cloth shoes with my toes poking out. Meanwhile, my stepsister was walking around in a brand new floral dress. "You really were pitiful, weren't you?" I whispered to the girl whose body I now wore. Back in the immortal world, even my cheapest robe was woven from heavenly silkworm thread. Now look at me. Wait. Shen Baozhu, Shen Zhengwo, Wang Xiufan. Why did these names sound so familiar? Then it hit me like a bolt of lightning. These were characters from a novel I read before I transmigrated. I couldn't remember the title, but I definitely remembered the story. That meant I wasn't just reborn into some random body. I was inside a book. Heaven really is messing with me. I cursed again. I sat up fast, ignoring the sharp pain in the back of my head, and forced myself to remember the plot. In the novel, Shen Baozhu was the female lead, Fate's favorite daughter. The worst thing that ever happened to her was getting sent to the countryside instead of her brother. But even there, she lived like a queen. Other people helped her earn work points. She found wild ginseng in the mountains. She met a future business tycoon at the educated youth camp, fell in love, and after the college entrance exams came back, they both got into top universities. Her life was smooth sailing from start to finish. The book also mentioned that Baozhu used magical spring water to save some powerful person in the countryside, and that person later became her biggest supporter. The spring water came from a pocket dimension, a spatial artifact. And the key to that space was the jade pendant we had just been fighting over. My heart started pounding. I quickly checked my hand. The pendant was still there, stained with my blood. I focused my mind and thought. Enter the space. The next second, everything around me changed. I was standing in a familiar place. A spring bubbled up from the ground. Next to it sat a neat little wooden cabin. In the distance, green mountains faded into mist. The air was thick with spiritual energy. This was MY Space, my personal dimension from the immortal realm. I stood there frozen for a moment, then rage exploded inside me. So that's how it was. This wasn't some special cheat the novel's heroine was born with. This was MY Space, the life-bound artifact of the Canopy Immortal. If I hadn't transmigrated here, the original Yi Xiaoxiao would have just been a stepping stone who handed the female lead her golden ticket and then died for nothing. In the original story, Yi Xiaoxiao died during this fight. The pendant fell into Baozhu's hands. Baozhu accidentally bonded with it, gained the space and the spirit spring, and lived happily ever after. Meanwhile, the original owner died without anyone even noticing. Well played, Shen Baozhu, I said through clenched teeth. I am not the old Yi Xiaoxiao. I am the Canopy Immortal. This whole rotten family was going to pay for what they did to her. I walked to the spirit spring and scooped up some water, about to drink it. Then I stopped myself. If I drank it now, my wound would heal too fast. And I still needed this wound. I had plans for it. Hee. I went into the wooden cabin instead. Inside were treasures I had collected over 1,000 years. Pills, magical weapons, talismans, cultivation manuals, even chests of gold and silver. Too bad most of this stuff couldn't be shown in this era. But still, with this space, my life here was going to be very comfortable. I willed myself out of the space and returned to the house. I could hear footsteps and voices outside. Baozhu and her mother Wang Xiufan were coming back. I quickly lay back down on the floor and pretended to still be unconscious. I had already absorbed the space from the pendant. The jade itself was useless now, but I kept gripping it tight because I needed it as bait. This time, I wanted to see just how well the great Shen Baozhu would do without her cheat code. Mom, why is she still lying here? Baozhu's voice was shaking. Wang Xiufan crouched down and shook me. Hey, wake up. Stop faking. I didn't move a muscle. But inside, my mind was crystal clear. I could hear Baozhu's breathing getting faster. She was panicking.
Mom,
She's still not moving, Baozhu's voice cracked. Did I really kill her? Wang Xiufan checked my breathing. When she felt the faint air from my nose, she relaxed a little. But then she tensed up again. She's alive, but we can't just leave her like this. If something happens, your father will never let it go. By now, several neighbors had gathered at the yard entrance. Aunt Li from across the way was the first to peek in. She saw me on the floor and the pool of blood and shrieked, "Oh my heavens! Is someone dead? What happened to Xiaoxiao?" That one shout brought even more people. Within minutes, 3 or 4 neighbors were crowded into the yard, all talking over each other. Isn't this Director Shen Xiaoxiao? Why is she on the ground? The back of her head is bleeding. A wound this bad. Get her to the hospital. What happened? Someone explain. Baozhu panicked under all the attention and stammered.
It wasn't me.
She slipped and hit her head on her own. It has nothing to do with me. That excuse only made things worse. The neighbors exchanged knowing looks. Nobody believed her. Wang Xiufan saw things going sideways and instantly switched to full acting mode. She threw herself next to me and cried, "My poor Xiaoxiao. Why are you so careless? Baozhu told you to slow down, but you just wouldn't listen. She made it sound like she cared about me, but really she was blaming me for my own injury. Clever." I laughed coldly in my heart. This stepmother was no amateur. Even at a time like this, she didn't forget to put on a show. Then a loud voice cut through the crowd. "Make way. What's going on here?" It was Grandma Zhao from the neighborhood committee. She took one look at the situation and made a decision on the spot. "What are you all standing around for? Get this child to the hospital." Wang Xiufan tried to stall. "Maybe we should wait for my husband to come home." "Wait for what?" Grandma Zhao snapped. "Can't you see how badly she's hurt? By the time your husband gets here, it'll be too late." 2 kind aunties jumped into action. Aunt Zhang pushed over a flatbed cart from her house. Aunt Li brought a cotton blanket from inside and spread it over the cart. They gently lifted me onto it. I kept my body completely limp the whole time, playing dead like a professional. Xiaofan, Baozhu, you two come along, Grandma Zhao ordered.
She's part of your family.
Someone needs to be there at the hospital. Wang Xiufan's face went pale, then red, then pale again. But with everyone watching, she had no choice. Of course, she said sweetly. Xiao Xiao is like my own daughter. I would never leave her side. The whole way to the hospital, Wang Xiufan put on a show, touching my forehead, tucking the blanket around me, acting like the world's most loving stepmother. Baozhu followed behind, nervous and quiet, sneaking glances at me every few seconds, terrified I might suddenly wake up and point my finger at her. I kept my eyes shut, but with my spiritual sense I saw everything. I smiled inside. The harder this mother-daughter pair performed their little act, the more satisfying it would be when the truth finally slapped them in the face. They rushed me to the machinery factory workers' hospital on the flatbed cart. The doctor took one look at the bloody mess on the back of my head, and his face went dark. How did you let it get this bad before bringing her in? He snapped at the family, then turned to the nurse. Get her into surgery now. The wound needs cleaning and stitches immediately. A nurse came out and told the family to pay 20 yuan for the surgery. Wang Xiufan immediately started stuttering. We left in such a rush. We didn't bring any money. She kept glancing at Grandma Zhao, hoping someone else would pay. Grandma Zhao sighed, pulled a handkerchief from her pocket, carefully unfolded it, and took out 2 10-yuan bills. I'll cover it for now, she said. Then she sent Aunt Li's boy Huzi to run to the factory and find my father, Shen Zhengwo, so he could bring money to the hospital. Huzi was a fast kid. He sprinted all the way to the factory gate and shouted to the guard, "Find Director Shen." His daughter cracked her head open. She's dying. Then he kept yelling as he ran through the factory. Director Shen, your daughter is hurt. There's blood everywhere. She might not make it. Workers stopped what they were doing. Supervisors came out to see what was happening. My father was in his office reading production reports. When he heard the commotion, he stood up just as Huzi burst through his door, gasping for air. Director Shen, get to the hospital. Your daughter is dying. The moment my father heard the word daughter, his face went white. His first thought, his only thought, was of his precious Shen Baozhu. He grabbed Huzi by the shoulders, his voice shaking. What happened to Baozhu? Huzi stammered about a cracked head and lots of blood and emergency treatment. My father nearly fainted. He borrowed money from his co-workers and ran out of the office without even asking for details. The whole way to the hospital, the only thing on his mind was Baozhu. He arrived drenched in sweat, his white shirt soaked through. He shoved open the emergency room door, and the first thing he saw was Shen Baozhu standing right there, perfectly fine. Baozhu. He let out a huge breath of relief and rushed to grab her arm. You're okay? You scared me to death. Baozhu blinked, confused. Dad, I'm fine. Then my father realized what had happened. He turned and glared at Huzi, annoyed. You little brat, making things up. Poor Huzi flinched and scratched his head, completely lost about what he'd done wrong. Only then did my father notice me lying on the flatbed cart. I could see it in his eyes. The moment he understood it was just me, not Baozhu, his worry vanished, replaced by irritation. He was actually annoyed that he'd rushed over and embarrassed himself in front of his co-workers for nothing, for someone like me. But with everyone watching, he quickly fixed his expression and walked over, putting on a concerned face. Xiao Xiao, what happened? Is it serious? Grandma Zhao stepped forward, her voice sharp. Now you're worried? Where were you earlier? The child is hurt this badly, and her own father didn't even know. Go pay the medical bills first. I'm still out 20 yuan. My father's face turned red, then white. He didn't want to spend the money, but he had no choice with all the neighbors standing right there. He went to the payment window, and every single bill he pulled out seemed to cause him physical pain. In his mind, he was cursing me for being such a burden. After paying, he came back and raised his voice for everyone to hear. Where's the doctor? How's my daughter? Make sure you use the best medicine. A perfect performance. Several neighbors nodded approvingly. But Grandma Zhao saw right through him. She had caught that split second when his face changed, the moment he realized it was me, not Baozhu, who was hurt. She knew exactly where his heart really was. I lay in that surgery room with my eyes closed, but my spiritual sense let me see and hear everything outside. I laughed coldly to myself. What a wonderful father. Since none of you treated me like family, don't blame me for what comes next. This show was only getting started. After the surgery, they moved me to a hospital room. Everyone gathered around my bed, watching. Huzi spotted it first, my eyelids twitching. "She's waking up," he shouted. All eyes locked onto me. I let my lashes flutter slowly, then opened my eyes with a dazed, lost expression, like a scared little animal. I looked around the room, my gaze drifting from face to face, until it landed on Shen Baozhu. Then I exploded. I started shaking violently, waving my arms in the air, screaming at the top of my lungs. "Don't hit me. Please don't hit me. Baozhu, you can have the jade pendant. I don't want it anymore. Just please stop hitting me." I scrambled backward on the bed until I was pressed into the corner, crying and trembling, the perfect picture of a girl who had been beaten and terrorized for years. The room went dead silent. Then every single pair of eyes turned to Shen Baozhu. The aunties who already didn't like the stepmother's daughter now looked at her with open disgust. Baozhu's face turned bright red. She had never been publicly accused like this before. She completely lost control, pointing at me and screaming, "You lying little tramp! How dare you frame me? I'll rip your mouth apart." And then she actually lunged at me, right there in the hospital, in front of everyone. Aunt Zhang and Aunt Li grabbed her just in time, one on each side. "Baozhu, what are you doing?" Aunt Zhang yelled. Xiao Xiao is still injured, but Baozhu kept struggling and cursing, trying to break free. "Let go of me. I'm going to teach this lying little witch a lesson." Her reaction only proved everything I had just said. Grandma Zhao let out a cold snort and turned to my father with sharp eyes. "Zhang Wo, you saw all of that, right? If Baozhu dares to act like this in the hospital, imagine what Xiao Xiao goes through at home." She paused, her voice getting even harder. "I'm not trying to meddle, but you are Xiao Xiao's birth father. What kind of father ignores his own flesh and blood and cares only about someone else's child?" My father's face went from red to purple. He looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. He forced a smile and tried to explain. "Grandma Zhao, you've got it wrong. I treat both girls equally. It's just that work at the factory has been so busy. Maybe I've overlooked some things." Nobody bought it. The neighbors didn't say anything more, but their faces said plenty. Some even coughed loudly on purpose just to show their disapproval. Aunt Li whispered to Aunt Zhang, "Treats them equally? Look at what Baozhu is wearing and look at what Xiao Xiao is wearing. Anyone with eyes can see the difference." Aunt Zhang whispered back, "Exactly. If we hadn't seen it with our own eyes today, we'd never have known what kind of life Xiao Xiao has at home. And he calls himself a workshop director, can't even protect his own child." These whispers weren't exactly quiet. In the still hospital room, every word was perfectly clear. My father's face got darker and darker, but he couldn't lash out. Not with an audience. Wang Xiufin tried to smooth things over. "Everyone, please, let's all calm down. Xiao Xiao just woke up. She needs rest." She walked to my bed and reached out to tuck in my blanket, playing the loving stepmother one more time. I flinched away from her hand like she'd burned me and cried out, "Don't touch me. Please don't touch me. I know I was wrong. I won't ask for the jade pendant ever again." That dragged Wang Xiufin right into the mess too. Grandma Zhao gave another cold snort. She didn't say anything more, but her eyes clearly said, "Let's see how long you can keep this act up." My father saw the situation spiraling out of control. He put on his best face and addressed the room. "Thank you all so much for your help today. I've already paid the medical bills. I'll take good care of Xiao Xiao from here. You've all been busy all afternoon. Please go home and rest." People started leaving, but every single one of them gave my father a look on the way out, the kind of look that made him squirm. The second the door closed and the last neighbor was gone, my father's mask dropped. He glared at Wang Xiufin and Baozhu and hissed through his teeth, "We'll settle this when we get home." And there on the hospital bed, with no one looking my way, I let the corner of my mouth curve up into a small, satisfied smile. The hospital was dead quiet at night. Just the soft footsteps of the duty nurse in the hallway now and then. Just as I expected, the Shin family made up some excuse and left before dark. They didn't bother staying to watch over me. That was perfectly fine. I had plans for tonight. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my eyes sharp in the darkness. I remembered something very important from that novel. In the book, Shun Baozhu found a huge stash of valuable treasures hidden in the old Yi family house, my real grandfather's home. Those treasures became the startup money for Baozhu and her future husband's business empire. Not this time, I thought coldly. You're not getting a single coin. At 11 o'clock, the hospital was so quiet I could hear crickets chirping outside the window. I slipped out of bed without making a sound, pulled a set of dark clothes from my space, changed quickly, and snuck past the night nurse like a shadow. Getting out of the hospital was easy. I moved like a cat in the dark. Moonlight lit up the empty streets. Using the original Yi Xiaoxiao's memories, I found my way to the old Yi family mansion on the west side of the city. The place had been abandoned for years. People said it was haunted, so nobody went near it. That was exactly why the treasures inside had never been found. The courtyard wall was about 2 meters tall. A normal person would have had trouble climbing it. But earlier that day, I had secretly used my spiritual sense to cultivate inside my space, and I managed to recover just a sliver of my power, enough to reach the first level of qi refining. I jumped lightly and sailed over the wall without a sound, landing softly in the yard. Thank goodness I got even this little bit of power back, I muttered, brushing dust off my hands. Otherwise, I couldn't even climb a wall. The old mansion was big, 3 courtyards deep, front to back. It was overgrown and neglected, but you could still see it had once been an elegant place. I walked through the front and back courtyards, then spread out my spiritual sense to scan the ground. Before long, I picked up strange energy waves coming from under an old locust tree in the back courtyard. There it is. My eyes lit up. I pulled a shovel from my space and started digging. As I dug, I couldn't help complaining to myself. Look at me, the great canopy immortal, who once commanded wind and rain across the entire immortal realm. Now I'm out here digging holes in the dirt at 3 in the morning. Life really isn't easy. After about 30 minutes, my shovel hit something hard with a dull thud. My heart jumped. I dug faster, and soon 3 large wooden chests appeared at the bottom of the pit. I hopped down and carefully opened them one by one. The first chest was full of gold bars, neatly stacked, gleaming under the moonlight. The second chest held scrolls and paintings. They were old, but perfectly preserved. Even I could tell they were masterpieces. The third chest was packed with porcelain, vases and jars painted with beautiful designs, their surfaces smooth as jade. All of these antiques had faint traces of spiritual energy around them. These were no ordinary objects. I'm rich. I'm rich. I could barely contain myself. I waved my hand and swept all 3 chests into my space in one motion. Then I let out a long breath. I had beaten Shin Baozhu to the punch. These treasures were mine now. I checked the sky. The moon had shifted far to the west, probably close to 3 in the morning. I quickly filled the hole back in, patted down the dirt to make it look untouched, brushed off my clothes, and got ready to sneak back to the hospital. Just as I was hopping over the wall, I heard a door creak open in the yard next door. Some young guy had gotten up to use the toilet. He looked up, half asleep, and saw a dark figure leap off the wall of the haunted house and glide through the air before vanishing into the night. Ghost! Ghost! He screamed, and I noticed a wet patch spreading down the front of his pants. He scrambled back inside, tripping over himself, yelling, "Help! The haunted house has a ghost." It flew out of the yard. His screaming pierced the quiet night. Lights turned on in nearby houses. Dogs started barking. The whole neighborhood woke up. I stuck my tongue out from the shadows and picked up my pace. While everyone was distracted by the ghost panic, I slipped back to the hospital, climbed through the window into my room, changed out of my dirty clothes into the hospital gown, stuffed the muddy outfit back into my space, and dove under the covers. By the time anyone checked on me, I was sleeping peacefully, just a poor injured girl who had been in bed the whole night. Early the next morning, Wang Xiufan showed up at the hospital carrying a cloth bag with 2 warm vegetable buns inside. She had gotten up extra early just to cook them. Not because she cared about me, but because she needed props for her loving stepmother performance. "Xiao Xiao, Mama's here to take you home," she cooed as she walked into my room, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Did you sleep well? Does your head still hurt? I made your favorite buns." I wanted to laugh in her face. Instead, I put on a shy, grateful expression.
"Thank you, Mama."
"I feel much better." I took the buns with trembling hands and nibbled at them like a timid little mouse. Wang Xiufan looked pleased. She probably thought the knock on my head had finally made me obedient. She had no idea who she was really dealing with now. We left the hospital and walked home together, Wang Xiufan in front, me trailing behind. She made a big show of slowing down and checking on me. "Walk slowly, careful you don't get dizzy." All for anyone who might be watching. The moment we stepped through the gate of the factory housing compound, a group of neighbors who had been out buying groceries spotted us. Aunt Li was the first to rush over. "Oh, Xiao Xiao. You're out of the hospital? How are you feeling?" She studied my pale face with concern. I gave her a weak little smile and swayed slightly on my feet, like I might faint at any moment. "Thank you for worrying about me, Aunt Li. I'm better, but still a bit dizzy." I pressed my hand to my temple and looked like I might collapse. A perfect picture of a fragile, sickly girl. Then Aunt Zhang came closer and whispered, "Xiao Xiao, what really happened yesterday? I heard you were hurt pretty badly." This was my moment. I immediately put on a panicked expression and waved my hands. "It was nothing. I just fell on my own. It had nothing to do with Baozhu. Please don't misunderstand her." I said it in the most sincere way possible, voice shaking, eyes darting around nervously. Anyone watching would instantly think I was being forced to cover for Shen Baozhu. And that's exactly what happened. The neighbors exchanged knowing looks. "Aún misnurta. Fell on your own? Xiao Xiao, don't be afraid. If someone is bullying you, just tell us. We'll stand up for you." Aunt Zhang nodded. "That's right. We all saw it yesterday. Baozhu tried to hit you right there in the hospital. How is that acceptable?" Inside, I was bursting with joy. On the outside, I got even more flustered. No, really. Baozhu treats me well normally. Yesterday, she was just upset for a moment. It really wasn't her fault. The more I defended Baozhu, the more convinced everyone became that she was a bully. The aunties huddled together, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look how kind Xiao Xiao is, beaten like that, and she's still speaking up for that girl. I'm telling you, a stepmother's daughter is trouble. No manners, and Director Shin just lets them push his own flesh and blood around." Wang Xiufan stood there listening, her face turning green. But she couldn't say anything without making things worse. She forced a smile and tried to wrap things up. "Xiao Xiao just got out of the hospital. She needs rest. We should head home." That's when Shen Baozhu walked in through the gate. She saw me surrounded by sympathetic neighbors and immediately sneered. "Oh, you're back?" Still putting on the helpless act, the timing could not have been more perfect. Aunt Li's face hardened instantly.
"Baozhu.
What kind of way is that to talk? Xiao Xiao is your younger sister. She just got out of the hospital with a head injury, and instead of showing concern, you say something like that." Baozhu opened her mouth to argue back, but Wang Xiufan grabbed her arm and shot her a look that said, "Shut up right now." I jumped in quickly, playing peacemaker. "Please don't be angry, Aunt Li. Baozhu just speaks bluntly. She doesn't mean any harm." I looked up at Baozhu with big, frightened eyes, like a scared little rabbit. The performance was flawless. People always feel more sympathy for the weak one. I had just come from the hospital, still pale and shaky. Nobody was going to doubt a word I said. They looked at sweet, forgiving me, then looked at loud, rude Baozhu, and the disapproval on their faces couldn't have been clearer. Wang Xiufan saw the situation falling apart and quickly dragged both of us away. Her face was dark as a storm cloud the whole walk home. But me? I was singing inside. I was walking the green tea's path and leaving the green tea with nowhere to go. Let's see how this wicked stepmother tries to clean up her precious daughter's reputation now. The second we got inside the house, Wang Xiufan dropped the mask. She glared at me with pure venom. What was all that nonsense you were spouting out there? I blinked innocently. What do you mean, stepmother? Did I say something wrong? I was defending Baozhu the whole time. She opened her mouth but couldn't find a single thing to throw back at me. She stormed into her room and slammed the door. Baozhu shot me a murderous look, like she wanted to skin me alive, then followed her mother inside. I strolled back to my little room, humming a happy tune. After Wang Xiaofan dropped me off at home, she hurried out to go to work. I watched her leave and laughed coldly to myself. That job should have been mine. The memories of the original Yi Xiaoxiao told me the whole story. My real mother, Yi Lan, was a key technical worker at the machinery factory. During a factory fire, she rushed into the flames to save important technical documents. She saved the papers, but she breathed in too much smoke and died. The factory honored her as a labor hero. They kept her job position open and gave the family 1,000 yuan in compensation.
I was only 5 years old at the time.
My father told the factory to let Wang Xiaofan take the job temporarily, just until Xiaoxiao grows up, he said. That was 12 years ago. Wang Xiaofan had been sitting in my mother's position ever since, treating it like it belonged to her. Dream on, I muttered. Everything that's mine, I'm taking back. I looked around this so-called home and got angrier by the second. The Shin family lived in factory housing, 3 main rooms plus a small courtyard, with 2 wing rooms on each side. Pretty decent for this era. But where did the original Yi Xiaoxiao live? The storage shed. I walked to the tiny room in the farthest corner of the yard and pushed open the door. What I saw made my blood boil. This wasn't a room. It was a junk closet. Less than 8 square meters, stuffed with broken furniture, old newspapers, and random garbage. The air was thick with mold. In one corner, someone had crammed a narrow bed made of wooden boards. The blanket on top was so old the cotton inside had turned yellow and hard. It clearly hadn't been washed in ages and it stank. The newspaper pasted on the walls had turned yellow and was peeling off. Spider webs hung in every corner. The small window had a cracked pane held together with tape, letting in barely any light. The great canopy immortal is not living in this dump. I stomped my foot. I had never been treated this badly in any lifetime. I turned around and marched straight to Shin Baozhu's room. She was still sprawled out in bed, sleeping in, completely unaware that trouble was coming. I shoved the door open. Baozhu woke up in a daze, and before she could even see who it was, I grabbed her with one hand and lifted her right out of bed.
What?
Who? She screamed. I didn't give her time to think. I carried her, this girl who was half a head taller than me, across the yard in big, fast steps. Then I tossed her out like a bag of trash. She flew 2 meters through the air and landed hard on her backside. Pain twisted her face, and tears instantly poured down her cheeks.
Ye Xiaoxiao.
Have you lost your mind? She stared at me in shock, unable to believe this was the same stepsister she used to push around. I crossed my arms, looked down at her, and said coldly, starting today, this room is mine. Go wherever you want. You are not allowed back in here. Baozhu sat on the ground, crying and shaking with anger. You can't just take my room.
I'm telling Mom. I'm telling Dad.
They'll beat you to death. I narrowed my eyes and let my voice drop to ice. Keep screaming, and I'll make sure you never speak again. There was real killing intent behind those words, the kind of pressure only a cultivator could produce. Baozhu's whole body flinched. She stopped crying out loud immediately, reduced to quiet sniffles with tears dripping silently down her face. She couldn't understand it. How did her weak, timid stepsister suddenly become this terrifying? Those eyes, that strength, that overwhelming aura, it was like dealing with a completely different person. I didn't waste another second on her. I slammed the door shut and looked around my new room. What a difference. Baozhu's room was spacious and bright, with a big window and pink curtains. Sunlight poured in across a clean floor. There was a brand new desk and wardrobe made of quality wood, and a soft, comfortable bed. I opened the wardrobe. It was full of clothes, all Baozhu's. I didn't want any of them. I threw everything aside and found a set of fresh bedding to put on the bed. Then I picked up all of Baozhu's old blankets and sheets, swept them into my space, and decided to sell them on the black market later. I wasn't leaving her a single thing. Once the room was set up properly, I lay down on the bed and let out a satisfied sigh. Then I sent my consciousness into the space and began cultivating. Inside the space, spiritual energy was still rich and thick. I circulated my techniques and guided the energy through my meridians. Even though this world had almost no spiritual energy, the spirit spring in my space made up for it. After less than an hour of practice, I could already feel my internal energy growing stronger. At this rate, I'll break through to the second level of chi refining soon, I thought happily. During a break from cultivating, I went through the treasure chests from the old mansion. I opened them one by one. The first chest held 20 gold bars, each weighing 10 taels. Heavy, solid, and gleaming. I picked one up and bounced it in my hand. No more money problems, I grinned. In this era, gold was the ultimate currency. The second chest contained scroll paintings. I carefully unrolled one, and my eyes went wide. It was a genuine Tang Bohu original. Mountains, pavilions, brushwork that took my breath away. I checked the others. All masterpieces from the Ming and Qing dynasties. Priceless. No wonder Xin Baozhu got so rich in the novel, I murmured. Her startup capital was insane. The third chest was filled with porcelain, blue and white vases, pastel-colored bowls, underglaze red teapots. Every single piece was exquisite. I wasn't an antiques expert, but even I could tell these were extraordinary. I'm rich. I'm so rich. I carefully put everything back and secured the chests. With this kind of wealth, I could live very comfortably in this era. After organizing my treasures, I visited the spirit spring. Clear water bubbled up from the ground, surrounded by dense spiritual energy. I cupped some in my hands and drank. Instantly, my mind cleared, and my whole body felt refreshed. I need to come in here and cultivate as often as possible, I thought. This world isn't as dangerous as the immortal realm, but having some power to protect myself is never a bad idea. I thought about the Xin family, and my eyes turned cold. Not one of them was simple. My father only cared about Baozhu. Wang Xiufan was sweet on the outside and poison on the inside. Baozhu was spoiled and vicious, and their son, Shen Jiakong, had been raised with zero discipline. Dealing with these people would require real strength. But right now, I smiled coldly. They should be the ones worrying, not me. This is only the beginning. I went back to cultivating. Meanwhile, outside my new room, Baozhu had finally picked herself up off the ground. She limped to the door and pushed it, locked from inside.
Ye shao jiao.
Open the door, she whispered fiercely, too scared to actually yell. No answer. She stamped her foot in frustration and hissed through her teeth. Just you wait. When Mom and Dad get home, you're finished. But deep down, even she could feel something had changed. The coldness in my eyes. The strength in one hand that lifted her like she weighed nothing. That murderous aura. Just thinking about it sent a chill down her spine. Did she get possessed? Baozhu shuddered and didn't dare think about it any further. After I kicked Baozhu out of her room, she sat in the yard feeling sorry for herself for a while, then limped out the door. I knew exactly where she was going, to find her precious brother Yuan, for comfort. This Feng Yuan was the youngest son of the factory's vice director. He was tall and good-looking, with those charming fox eyes that girls liked. But he was completely useless, a lazy guy who only had a job at the factory because of his parents' connections. He barely showed up to work. Here's the funny part. Feng Yuan was originally my fiancé. When I was 2 years old, my real mother and Feng Yuan's mother were close friends. They arranged a marriage between us kids. Back then, with my mother still alive and the Yi family doing well, it was a perfect match. But after my mother died, everything changed. Feng Yuan started spending all his time with Xin Baozhu. They were glued together every day while I, the actual fiancé, was completely ignored. My father even had the nerve to go to Vice Director Feng and suggest switching the engagement to Baozhu. Both families happily agreed. So, off Baozhu went, crying her crocodile tears to Feng Yuan about how I bullied her. He took her straight to the state-run restaurant for lunch and ordered a whole spread, braised pork, sweet and sour fish, chicken, 2 bottles of soda. 5 yuan for one meal, equal to 2 days' wages for a regular worker. He didn't even blink. Don't cry, baby, he told her, putting food on her plate. I'll teach her a lesson for you later. Once we're married, you can do whatever you want to her. Those two lovebirds had no idea what was happening back at the house. Around noon, Shen Jiakong came home from work. He was Wang Xiufan and my father's precious son, an apprentice at the factory who had been spoiled rotten his whole life. He walked in, saw that no food had been cooked, and immediately started screaming.
Ye Shao Jiao.
You worthless thing. Where are you? Can't even make lunch? Trying to starve me? I'll teach you a lesson. The old Yi Xiao would have been shaking with fear and rushing to the kitchen. But that girl was gone. I strolled out of my room slowly and gave him one cold look. Who do you think you are? You think you deserve to have me cook for you? He froze for a second, then exploded. You're asking for it. He raised his hand to slap me. Bad move. I was faster. I stepped forward and smack, slapped him twice across the face, so hard his eyes rolled back. Both cheeks swelled up instantly. That's for your filthy mouth. I stood with my hands on my hips, towering over him in spirit even if not in height. Next time you bark at me like that, I'll hit you so hard your own parents won't recognize you. He stood there holding his burning face, completely stunned. He had never been hit like this in his entire life, not even by his own parents. That's when my father and Wang Xiufan came home from work. The first thing they saw was their beloved son's face puffed up like a pig. My baby. What happened to you? Wang Xiufan threw herself at him, cupping his swollen cheeks, practically crying. My father grabbed a stick from behind the door and charged at me. You've gone too far. You even dare hit your brother? I'll beat you to death. I knew exactly what to do. I ran toward the yard, screaming at the top of my lungs. Help! He's hitting me. My father is going to kill me. I made sure to mess up my own hair as I ran, making myself look like a battered child. Within seconds, the neighbors came pouring in. Aunt Li arrived first, still wearing her apron and holding a spatula. She had run straight from her kitchen. Jiangwo, what are you doing? She stepped between us. Xiao Xiao's injury hasn't even healed yet. How can you hit her with a stick? Aunt Zhang was right behind her.
Exactly.
What if you really hurt her? Can't you just talk things out? Soon a whole crowd was standing outside our yard, all staring at my father and whispering. That poor girl just got out of the hospital and already being beaten. Didn't she just get her head cracked open yesterday? What kind of father does this? Look how thin and weak she is. She could blow away in a strong wind. How could anyone hit her? My father was breathing hard, furious but trapped. With all these witnesses, he couldn't touch me. He tried to explain. She hit her brother. I was just trying to discipline her so she doesn't cause trouble outside. Aunt Li wasn't buying it. Oh, please. Xiao Xiao is this small and clearly malnourished. You expect us to believe she could beat up Jiakong, who's twice her size. Jiangwo, there's a limit to how much you can play favorites. The neighbors' whispers got louder. I bet Jiakong started it. Of course he did. We've all seen him bully Xiao Xiao before. Jiangwo never did a thing about it. Now the girl fights back once and he wants to kill her? What kind of justice is that? My father's face turned every shade of red and white. Wang Xiufan was stomping her feet behind him, shooting him desperate looks, but there was nothing she could say either. Finally, under pressure from everyone, my father put down the stick and mumbled, Fine, fine. I won't hit Xiao Xiao anymore. I followed him back inside, looking hurt and pitiful the whole way. But the second we were through the door and out of sight, I turned around, made a funny face at all three of them, and strutted back to my room like I owned the place. They stood there staring after me, boiling with rage, but unable to do a thing. Wang Xiufan rushed to check on her son's face, crying over the swelling. That horrible girl. How could she hit you so hard? Jiakong held his cheeks and growled through his teeth. Mom, did Yi Xiao Xiao get possessed? She was never this strong before. My father stood silently, his face dark. He was thinking the same thing. My behavior today was completely different from everything they knew. Not only did I fight back, but my strength was terrifying. Could I really be possessed? Back in my room, I hummed a happy tune and kicked my feet up on the bed. Another perfect victory. What I wanted was simple, destroy the Shen family's reputation in this compound. After today, nobody would take their side ever again. But I wasn't done yet. I started planning my next moves. First, I needed to get my mother's job back. Wang Xiaofan had been sitting in that position for 12 years. Time to return it to its rightful owner. Second, I needed to make money. My space was full of treasure, but I couldn't just pull out gold bars and antique paintings without raising suspicion. Third, and most important, I needed to get stronger. First level of qi refining was better than nothing, but it wasn't nearly enough. If something unexpected happened, I wouldn't be able to handle it. Long road ahead. I sighed. But then I smiled. Compared to fighting for survival in the immortal realm, this is nothing. I closed my eyes and set my mind back into the space to cultivate. Meanwhile, Baozhu and Feng Yuan were still enjoying their fancy lunch at the restaurant, completely clueless about the chaos at home. If they had known I took over the bedroom and slapped Jia Kong's face into a balloon, they probably wouldn't have been able to eat a single bite. And all the neighbors went home with plenty to talk about. After today's scene, the whole compound knew exactly what kind of father Shin Jiangwo really was. Around noon, Wang Xiaofan was busy cooking in the kitchen. The smell of food filled the whole yard. My father had gotten a bonus at work, so she bought meat to celebrate. Jia Kong was the first one in the kitchen, drooling over a plate of braised pork. Mom, why did you make braised pork today? It smells amazing. Wang Xiaofan shooed him away to wash his hands, looking pleased with herself. My father sat at the head of the table. 3 white flour steamed buns were placed in front of him. The good stuff, always saved for him and his son first. That was the unspoken rule of this house. Baozhu came back from outside, still pouting about what happened this morning. Wang Xiaofan shot her a look telling her to behave. When all the food was set out, I could see exactly what was going on. 1 plate of braised pork, 1 plate of cabbage with tofu, 3 white flour buns, and 3 cornmeal buns. There was clearly nothing prepared for me. They hadn't even counted me as a person at this table. Let's eat, my father said, reaching for a white bun. That's when I opened my door and strolled out. I didn't look at any of them. I walked straight to the table and sat down like I owned the place. The whole room froze. Wang Xiaofan's face stretched long. My father frowned. Jia Kong immediately started yelling. Who told you to sit here? Get back to your room. I ignored all of them. I scanned the table, and a cold smile crossed my lips. 3 white buns and a plate of meat, and none of it meant for me. How nice. Then I moved. Before anyone could react, my hand shot out and grabbed both remaining white flour buns. What are you doing? Wang Xiaofan screamed. Those are for your father and Jia Kong. I didn't even glance at her. I bit off a huge chunk of 1 bun, then grabbed the plate of braised pork with my other hand and scooped more than half of it into my bowl. My meat! Jia Kong lunged for it. I dodged him easily, and in 3 bites the first bun was gone. Then I started on the pork. I ate fast and clean, not sloppy, just efficient. Everyone stared with their mouths hanging open. My father slammed the table so hard the dishes rattled. You've gone too far. Put that bun down. I didn't hear a word. The second bun disappeared. The pork plate was empty. Only then did I casually pick up my chopsticks and reach for the cabbage and tofu. Jia Kong panicked, terrified he wouldn't even get vegetables, and grabbed the cabbage plate with both hands, tipping it straight into his mouth. Soup spilled all down his shirt, but he didn't care. I put down my chopsticks, wiped my hands, and stood up. I'm full. Enjoy the rest. I turned and walked back to my room, leaving 4 people sitting there in stunned silence. Then the table exploded. Has that girl lost her mind? Wang Xiaofan jumped up first, pointing at my back. Ever since she hit her head yesterday, she's been like a completely different person. She never dared act like this before. Jia Kong stared at the empty meat plate and the soup stains on his shirt, nearly in tears. My meat. She ate all my meat. My father snapped his chopsticks in half. This can't go on. She's out of control, Baozhu piled on. Dad, Mom, you didn't see it this morning. She picked me up with 1 hand and threw me out of the room. Her strength is terrifying. She must be possessed by something. Wang Xiaofan leaned in and whispered, something is definitely wrong. Xiao Xiao used to be so obedient. How did she change overnight? Maybe Baozhu is right. Maybe she really is possessed. My father thought for a moment, then shook his head. This is New China. There are no ghosts. She just needs a good beating. We've been too soft on her. So what do? Jia Kong whimpered. She's so strong we can't even fight her. Wang Xiufan's eyes lit up with a scheme. If we can't handle her directly, we go around her. I know a spirit woman. What if we invite her to take a look? If Xiao Xiao really is possessed, we can deal with it. My father frowned. Are you crazy? If people find out I invited a spirit woman, I can kiss my director position goodbye. Then what's your plan? Wang Xiufan snapped back. Just let her keep doing this? Today she steals food off our table. Tomorrow she'll be walking all over us. Baozhu suddenly chimed in. Dad, Mom, I have an idea. Brother Yuan knows some tough guys. Why don't we have them grab Xiao Xiao at night and send her off to the countryside? My father actually flinched. Are you out of your mind? That's kidnapping. That's illegal. Then what do? Baozhu whined. Just let her bully us forever. The four of them sat there looking at each other, completely out of ideas. I heard every single word. My spiritual sense picked up their entire conversation through the walls. I was lying comfortably on my bed, munching on a spirit fruit for my space. Plotting against me, I chuckled. I've survived 1,000 years of schemes and backstabbing in the immortal realm. You think your little tricks impress me? A spirit woman? I almost laughed out loud. What kind of spirit woman could match a real cultivator? When she showed up, we'd see who dealt with whom. And those tough guys Baozhu mentioned? Even better. I was looking for a chance to test my qi refining strength. I wondered how many I could take at once. I pulled a talisman from my space, a special one I had crafted back in the immortal realm. I called it the Stink Talisman. Stick it on someone, and they would uncontrollably pass gas nonstop. Wang Xiufan loved putting on airs and acting elegant. Imagine her reputation after this little gift made its way onto her. The whole factory would be talking. Hee hee. Being invincible is so lonely. I sighed dramatically, then couldn't help grinning. I loved this kind of game, the kind where I held all the cards and they didn't even know it. Outside, the Shen family was still racking their brains for a plan. Wang Xiufan made the final call. I'll go ask around about that spirit woman first. And you keep an eye on Xiao Xiao. If she acts up again, we take action. My father nodded darkly.
Fine.
But if she causes one more scene, I'm breaking her legs. Jia Kong sniffled. But what about the meat? Can we make more for dinner? Eat, eat, eat. That's all you think about. Wang Xiufan smacked him on the head. You're useless. Can't even handle one little girl. Jia Kong mumbled quietly. She's strong as an ox. What am I supposed to do? Back in my room, I had already finished my fruit and settled into meditation. As far as I was concerned, the Shen family's little schemes were nothing more than after-dinner entertainment. That morning, Wang Xiufan stood in front of the mirror, carefully fixing her hair until she looked perfect. Then she picked up her bag and headed out to work, looking proud and put together as always. I was hiding behind the door, holding a yellowed talisman paper between my fingers. This was my special creation, the Stink Talisman. I had invented it back in the immortal realm specifically to mess with arrogant cultivators who thought too highly of themselves. I never imagined I'd get to use it in this world. Go, I whispered, and flicked the talisman with my finger. It turned into a tiny streak of light, invisible to the naked eye, and sank right into Wang Xiufan's back. She didn't feel a thing. I tiptoed after her. There was no way I was missing this show. Now, you might wonder why I had such a bizarre talisman in the first place. Well, 1,000 years of cultivation gets pretty boring for someone who came from the modern world. To keep myself entertained, I invented all kinds of prank talismans, stink talismans, itch talismans, truth talismans, you name it. Surprisingly, they sold incredibly well in the cultivation world. I actually made a fortune from them and became known as the Immortal Realm's top prank expert. Anyway, Wang Xiufan had no clue what was coming. She walked into the machinery factory cafeteria with a spring in her step. She wasn't qualified for technical work. She had only finished elementary school, having grown up in the countryside where girls rarely got an education. So she worked in the cafeteria, chopping vegetables and doing odd jobs. That was the position she had stolen from my mother. The kitchen was already busy. Chopping, frying, chatting, the usual morning noise. Wang Xiaofan sat on a low stool with a few other women, picking through vegetables and gossiping. Xiaofan, I heard your Baozhu beat Xiao Xiao so badly she ended up in the hospital. A plump woman asked nosily. Wang Xiaofan's face stiffened. She forced a smile. Oh, just kids playing around. Nothing serious. That's when it started. Her stomach let out a loud gurgle. A powerful wave of gas started churning inside her. Wang Xiaofan's eyes went wide. She clamped her legs together and squeezed with everything she had, desperately trying to hold it in. Not here. Not in front of everyone. I was watching through the window, and I nearly burst out laughing. I slapped my hand over my mouth, so hard my teeth hurt. My eyes curved into crescents. Wang Xiaofan was struggling. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She thought if she could just let it out slowly, quietly, nobody would notice. She was wrong. Boom! The sound exploded through the kitchen like a thunderclap. And with it came a smell, a thick, sour, rotten stench that spread through the entire back kitchen in seconds. Every sound in the room stopped. Every single person turned to stare at Wang Xiaofan. Her face went from normal to bright red all the way to her ears in about 1 second flat. She stammered, I was doubled over outside the window, tears streaming down my face. I dropped to a squat so nobody inside would see me shaking with laughter. Inside, the kitchen staff were fighting hard not to laugh. Their faces were red and swollen from holding it in. But the smell was so powerful that someone started coughing, and that broke the dam. Muffled laughter erupted everywhere. Good heavens, Xiaofan, what did you eat? A young woman asked, pinching her nose. That smell could peel paint. A male worker chimed in. Forget the smell. That sound was like a firecracker. Nearly gave me a heart attack. Wang Xiaofan opened her mouth to explain, and then it happened again.
Bang, bang, bang.
A rapid string of explosions, like a machine gun, completely out of her control. The whole kitchen lost it. People were slapping their thighs, bending over, some literally sliding off their stools laughing. The room was chaos. But then the laughter faded because the smell got worse. Much worse. People's eyes started watering. Someone yelled, "Run!" Gas attack. Everyone scrambled for the exits, covering their noses, pushing and shoving. It looked like a comedy movie. Wang Xiaofan ran too, but she kept firing off explosions with every step.
Bang, bang, bang.
She sounded like a human firecracker, leaving a trail of stench behind her. I was flat on the ground outside, clutching my stomach, wheezing. This was even better than I had imagined. The head chef came out with a dark expression. He was a serious man who took kitchen hygiene very seriously. He took one look at the mayhem, opened his mouth to speak, then got hit by the smell and staggered back 2 steps. Wang Xiaofan, what is going on with you? He demanded. This is a kitchen. We can't have this smell while we're cooking. How is anyone supposed to prepare food? That set off another round of laughter. Someone literally sat down on the ground, pounding the pavement and howling. Wang Xiaofan was on the verge of tears. Chef, I don't know what happened. It just suddenly, another explosion cut her off mid-sentence. The chef waved his hand in surrender. Go home. Just go home. Don't come back today. Wang Xiaofan covered her face and ran. But every few steps, bang, another one went off, like a farewell salute. People on the street jumped out of her way, holding their noses, staring in disbelief. By that afternoon, Wang Xiaofan was the most famous person at the machinery factory. The story spread like wildfire. Did you hear? That Wang Xiaofan from the cafeteria set off a chain of farts in the kitchen, sounded like firecrackers. That's not even the worst part. The smell was so bad, everyone evacuated the entire kitchen. No way. Really? I swear. My cousin works there. She saw the whole thing. Wang Xiaofan was running and farting at the same time. It was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. The gossip eventually reached my father's ears. He was in his office reading documents when he noticed whispering and stifled laughter outside his door. He ignored it at first until he caught the name Wang Xiaofan. His face went black as coal. He slammed open his office door, and the hallway went dead silent. "Don't you all have work to do?" he barked. Everyone scattered. But the looks on their faces, those knowing smirks and barely contained grins, made him want to crawl under his desk. He was so angry, he was shaking. That useless woman had made him a laughingstock. Meanwhile, Wang Xiaofan was hiding at home under her blankets. But even lying in bed, the farts wouldn't stop. Every few minutes, bang, like a cruel joke that just kept going. To make things even worse, she could hear children playing outside her window, chanting, "Look, that's the Fart Queen's house. Fart Queen. Fart Queen." She punched the bed in fury, but there was nothing she could do. She couldn't figure out what had gone wrong with her body. And me? I was lying in my room, perfectly comfortable, snacking on a spirit fruit and replaying every glorious moment of the day in my head. After work that evening, my father dragged himself home like a man walking to his own funeral. The whole day at the factory had been torture for him. Everywhere he went, whispers, stifled laughter, and those looks. Those awful, knowing looks. "Did you hear about Director Shin's wife? Sure, he's coming. Just thinking about it." Every whispered word was like a needle in his pride. He wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. But as a workshop director, he couldn't just run away. He had to sit there and endure it, hour after painful hour. The second the clock hit quitting time, he practically fled the factory. He walked home with his head down, taking side streets to avoid people, terrified of hearing Wang Xiaofan's name one more time. He pushed open the front door and was immediately hit by a wall of sour stench. His stomach flipped. He called out cautiously, "Xiaofan?" No answer. He opened the bedroom door and nearly fell backward. The smell was so thick it was almost visible. He gagged and stumbled away from the doorway. "Wang Xiaofan," he shouted from outside the door, shaking with anger. "What is wrong with you? Is this ever going to stop?" From inside came her sobbing voice. "I don't want this either. I don't know what's happening to me. I can't control it." My father stomped back and forth in the hallway. "Your farting is famous across the entire factory now. How am I supposed to show my face? You've destroyed my reputation." Wang Xiaofan cried harder. "I really can't stop it." He thought about his day, the co-workers with their meaningful smiles, his subordinates fighting not to laugh, even the factory leaders looking at him with that half-amused expression. "I've worked at this factory for years, and I've never been this humiliated," he roared. "How am I supposed to hold my head up anymore?" Wang Xiaofan just sobbed, punctuated by the occasional muffled bang, like her own body was providing background music for her misery. My father couldn't take the smell anymore. He slammed the door shut and yelled through it, "Sleep by yourself tonight. I'm staying with Jiakong." He stormed off to his son's room, leaving Wang Xiaofan alone to cry and fart in the dark. That night was pure suffering for her. The gas was like a broken dam. Nothing could stop it. She tried everything, holding her breath, sleeping face down, pressing a pillow against her backside. Nothing worked. Every few minutes, another string of explosions would shatter the silence, followed by an even stronger wave of stench. I monitored it all with my spiritual sense. Every time she tried some desperate new trick, and it failed, I laughed so hard my sides hurt. She barely slept all night. Her eyes were swollen and red from crying. The thought of going back to work tomorrow and facing her coworkers made her want to never leave the room again. My father and Jiakong didn't have it easy either. Even with the door closed, the smell drifted in. Jiakong pulled the blanket over his head and whined, "Dad, what's wrong with Mom?" "It stinks." My father rolled over irritably. "Go to sleep." "Don't ask." The next afternoon, after a full 24 hours, the farting finally stopped. Wang Xiaofan practically wept with joy. She jumped out of bed and threw open every window. Then she stripped the bed and washed all the sheets and blankets. But the smell had soaked into the room like it had been pickled. She sprayed flower water, burned incense, and scrubbed everything, and it still only faded a little. Then she rushed to the hospital. She needed proof, a medical explanation she could show people. The doctor examined her thoroughly. Stomach, intestines, digestive system. Everything checked out perfectly normal. "Doctor, please look again," she begged. I was passing gas nonstop for an entire day. Something must be wrong. The doctor pushed up his glasses and looked at the results. Everything appears normal. It might have been temporary digestive disruption. "I'll prescribe some stomach medicine." Wang Xiaofan nodded eagerly. Yes, please give me medicine." She wasn't really worried about the pills. What she wanted was the prescription paper, proof that she had a real medical condition, not some embarrassing personal problem. The next morning, she gathered her courage and went to work. She held her head high and walked with confidence, pretending nothing had happened. But she barely made it a few steps before Aunt Li appeared. "Xiaofan, I heard you weren't feeling well the other day," Aunt Li asked with concern that didn't quite reach her amused eyes. "Just a stomach issue," Wang Xiaofan said quickly. "Went to the hospital, got medicine. All better now." A few more steps and Zhang. "Xiaofan, I heard at the cafeteria you were unwell." "Just my stomach. Got medicine. Already fine." Wang Xiaofan smiled through gritted teeth. Every single person she passed asked the same thing. She repeated her explanations so many times, she almost started believing it herself. At the factory gate, the guard smiled at her. "Feeling better, Mrs. Wang?" "Much better. Stomach problem. Medicine. All good." In the cafeteria, her co-workers gathered around. She delivered her rehearsed speech one more time. "I'm so sorry about the other day. Sudden stomach trouble. Went to the hospital. Got medication. Completely fine now." Everyone nodded sympathetically and told her to take care of her health. Wang Xiaofan felt the weight lift from her shoulders. She had explained everything. Surely people would stop laughing now. She was very, very wrong. The moment she turned her back, the whispering started. "Stomach problem? Please. What kind of stomach problem makes farts that loud?" They sounded like firecrackers. "I heard them from the next workshop over. You weren't there for the smell. Trust me, you don't want to know." And then came the nickname. Someone nobody knew who started calling her the Fart Queen. The name spread through the entire factory like wildfire. "Hey, the Fart Queen showed up for work today. Keep it down, she'll hear you. She says it was a stomach problem? Sure. And I'm the Emperor of China." Wang Xiaofan couldn't hear the specific words, but she could feel it. The strange looks. People pinching their noses as they walked past her. Workers joking at the serving window. "What's the special today?" "Nothing with extra flavor, right?" During breaks, nobody sat near her. She was miserable, humiliated, but she had no one to complain to and nowhere to hide. All she could do was keep her head down and work, praying the storm would blow over. Meanwhile, the mastermind behind it all, me, was having the time of my life at home. I had dug out a water mirror from my space, a handy little artifact that let me watch the cafeteria scenes in real time. Seeing Wang Xiaofan's embarrassed, helpless face as she tried to survive another day at work, I laughed until my stomach ached. The past few days had been quiet at the Shen house. They probably thought I had gone back to being the old pushover Yi Xiao. They had no idea I was just busy. I had been pouring all my energy into breaking through to the second level of qi refining and didn't have time to bother with them. That night, my father and Wang Xiaofan thought I was fast asleep. They sat in their bedroom with a kerosene lamp flickering on the table and started whispering their plans. They didn't know I had just broken through to level 2. My spiritual sense was sharper than ever now. I could hear every word, every breath, every pause between their sentences. "These past few days Xiao has been pretty well behaved," Wang Xiaofan said carefully. "Do you think she's come to her senses?" My father snorted and blew out a smoke ring. "Come to her senses? That girl is just like her mother, stubborn as a mule. She's probably plotting something. So what do? We can't let her keep making trouble. Jia Kong and Baozhu can barely stand it anymore." My father went quiet for a moment. Then he leaned in close and lowered his voice. "Actually, I have an idea."
A permanent solution. Wang Xiaofan's eyes lit up.
"What kind of idea?" "You remember Director Li from the Revolutionary Committee? His wife died last month. Left him with 2 kids. I heard about that. So, Director Li wants to find a new wife for himself. Someone young, educated, and good-looking." Wang Xiaofan's face practically glowed. "You mean Xiao Xiao takes after her mother. She's got a decent face, my father said, puffing his cigarette. We feed her up a little, dress her nice, let her finish high school. Then it's time for her to pay us back. Wang Xiufan slapped her thigh with excitement. That's brilliant. What did Director Li say? My father smiled smugly. I ran into him at the factory a couple days ago and tested the waters. He's offering 1,000 yuan as a bride price.
Plus à permanent worker position. 1,000 ans, Wang Xiufen gasped.
That much? And a worker position too. We give the job to Baozhu, my father whispered. That way the neighborhood committee and the youth office will stop pressuring us to send Baozhu to the countryside. Wang Xiufan was thrilled. But then she frowned. Will Xiao Xiao agree though? Director Li is over 40.
He's even older than you.
And I heard his first wife was actually Shu. My father cut her off. Those are just rumors. Don't repeat that. He paused, then his voice turned cold.
Parents decide mariage.
She doesn't get a say. Besides, marrying Director Li is a blessing. Plenty of people would kill for this opportunity. That's true, Wang Xiufan nodded. Director Li has real power in the Revolutionary Committee. She'd be a director's wife. Good food, good life. What's wrong with that? My father crushed his cigarette. Tomorrow we'll tell her together. Don't mention the stepmother part right away. Just say we found her a great match. Perfect, Wang Xiufan beamed. This solves everything. Baozhu gets a job, and we get the bride money. 2 birds with 1 stone. They kept going, excitedly planning how to spend the 1,000 yuan, treating me like a piece of goods to be sold at market. I sat cross-legged on my bed in the darkness, hearing every disgusting word. I knew about this Director Li from the original owner's memories. He was a powerful man in the Revolutionary Committee who used his position to bully everyone around him. His reputation was terrible. His first wife, everyone knew he had beaten her to death, even though officially it was called an accident. He was in his 40s, balding, with a beer belly and a face that could scare children. And my father wanted to sell me to this man. What hurt the most wasn't the scheme itself. It was the complete lack of feeling behind it. This man, who was supposed to be my father, had never shown the original Yi Xiaoxiao 1 drop of warmth. All his love went to Jia Kong and Baozhu. For Yi Xiaoxiao, there was only cold calculation. I thought I understood why. My father had married into the Yi family. He was the one who took his wife's family name, not the other way around. That had always been a sore spot for him. And I carried the Yi surname. Maybe in his eyes, I was just a reminder of that humiliation. You don't have to love me, I whispered in the dark, my eyes like ice. But you do not get to sell me. Their plan was neat, I had to admit. Sell me off, pocket a huge bride price, and get a permanent job slot for their precious Baozhu so she wouldn't have to go to the countryside. Everyone wins, except me. A wicked grin spread across my face. Since you want to play dirty, don't blame me for playing dirtier. That night, my father and Wang Xiufan fell asleep dreaming of money and promotions. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I slept in on purpose. When I finally strolled out of my room, both of them were already sitting in the living room, waiting for me with unusually warm smiles plastered on their faces. Xiao Xiao, you're up, Wang Xiufan greeted me sweetly.
Come eat breakfast.
I fried an egg for you. I glanced at the fried egg on the table. Being nice for no reason meant they were up to something. I sat down, grabbed the egg, and started eating without a word.
I didn't even look at them.
They exchanged a glance. My father cleared his throat. Xiao Xiao, there's something I'd like to discuss with you. Talk, I said, not looking up. He seemed annoyed by my attitude, but the thought of that 1,000 yuan kept him going. I've found a wonderful match for you. Director Li, from the Revolutionary Committee. He's a big leader. You'd be a director's wife. Good food, good everything. No, I cut him off. Wang Xiufan jumped in quickly. Don't say no so fast, Xiao Xiao. Director Li is a bit older, yes, but he knows how to treat a woman well. And he's offering 1,000 yuan as a bride price. Think of how many new clothes you could buy. I put down my chopsticks and stared at them coldly. 1,000 yuan? That's all it takes to sell me? You two really know how to do business. My father's face darkened. Watch your mouth. Parents arrange marriages. You don't get to refuse, I laughed. The kind of laugh that made both of them shift uncomfortably in their seats.
Fine.
If you're so eager to marry someone off to Director Lee, why not send Baozhu? She's older than me. She's the right age for marriage. Absolutely not, Wang Xiufan exploded. How could Baozhu marry him? I raised an eyebrow. Baozhu can't marry him, but I can? Am I not my father's biological daughter? That hit a nerve. My father slammed the table. You will agree to this whether you like it or not. I stood up and looked down at both of them. You want me to agree?
Fine.
Give me back my mother's job first. I turned and walked away, leaving them shaking with rage behind me. She's out of control, my father sputtered. Completely out of control, Wang Xiufan ground her teeth. We have to do something about her. We can't let this go on. Just when my father and Wang Xiufan were still arguing about whether to give me my mother's job, something unexpected happened that shook up the whole Shun household. Wang Xiufan had been feeling sick for days, nauseous in the mornings, craving sour food one moment and spicy food the next. She thought it was just stomach trouble until she fainted while doing laundry. Baozhu dragged her to the hospital. The test results shocked everyone. Wang Xiufan, at 42 years old, was pregnant. Is this real? My father's hands were trembling as he held the lab report. His face was glowing with joy. Xiufan, you're really pregnant. Wang Xiufan was stunned too, touching her still flat belly. At my age. How is this possible? My father was over the moon. He was 45, and getting his wife pregnant at this age was something he could brag about. He immediately puffed out his chest and told the doctor, use the best supplements. Money is no problem. The news spread through the factory housing compound in no time. Neighbors came to congratulate them on the surface, but behind their backs the gossip was merciless. Pregnant at that age? How embarrassing. Wasn't she the one who had that farting incident in the cafeteria? And now she's pregnant. Director Shen is quite the stallion, isn't he? I was cultivating in my space when I heard about it. I paused for a second, then let out a cold laugh. In the novel I had read, there was never any mention of Wang Xiufan getting pregnant. This unexpected baby was clearly not meant to exist in the original story. It probably wouldn't end well. Not my problem. I shrugged and went back to my training. But other people in the family weren't so calm about it. Jiakong and Baozhu smiled and congratulated their parents in public, but privately they were both upset. Jiakong was 20 years old and about to become a full worker at the factory. A new sibling meant someone else competing for the family's resources. Mom is so old. Giving birth is dangerous at her age, he complained to Baozhu. What if something goes wrong? Baozhu had her own worries. She was 18 marriage age. She had been counting on selling me off to Director Lee, so she could get a permanent job slot. Now her mother's pregnancy was public gossip, which was embarrassing. Would it hurt her marriage prospects? And her father had started talking about saving money for the new baby's education fund. What about her wedding dowry? Dad only cares about the unborn baby now, Baozhu said bitterly. He was talking about an education fund yesterday, and my dowry still isn't settled, so the Shun household entered a strange phase. On the surface, everyone was happy about the baby. Underneath, everyone was scheming for themselves. That's when my father and Wang Xiufan came up with their plan regarding my mother's job. Xiufan, you're pregnant now. You shouldn't be working at the factory, my father said with unusual tenderness. Let's transfer the job to Xiao Xiao. You focus on the baby. After the child is born, we'll figure out how to get the job back. Wang Xiufan didn't want to give up the position, but thinking about the baby, she agreed.
Fine.
Besides, once that girl agrees to the matchmaking with Director Lee and the job transfer is done, she won't be able to back out. So they came to me with their perfect deal. Xiao Xiao, I'm pregnant, and I really can't keep working at the factory, Wang Xiufan said, putting on a weak, fragile act. How about this? We transfer the job to you, but you have to agree to meet Director Lee for the matchmaking. I laughed inside but kept my face blank. Transfer the job, sure. We can talk about the matchmaking later. My father immediately got stern.
No.
You agree to the matchmaking first, then we transfer the job. I raised an eyebrow. Then we have nothing to talk about. I'm in no rush. The real question is whether stepmother can keep working all the way until the baby is born. That hit Wang Xiufan right where it hurt. She was already exhausted all the time and could barely handle her shifts. After some back and forth, they compromised. The job would be transferred first, but I had to go meet Director Lee for a matchmaking date within 1 week. I agreed. They thought they had me trapped. They had no idea. The next morning, the three of us went to the factory's personnel office. Section Chief Zhang greeted us with a smile. Director Shin, Mrs. Wang, what brings you in today? My father stood tall and spoke loudly. My wife is pregnant and can't work anymore. We'd like to transfer her position to our daughter Xiao Xiao. She just graduated high school. It's time for her to contribute. Chief Zhang looked me over and nodded. Nice-looking young lady. What's your education? I answered calmly. I graduated high school this year, Chief Zhang. I was consistently ranked first or second in my class. Just then, a Director Lee from the office happened to walk by. He overheard our conversation and spoke up. Zhang, isn't the propaganda department still looking for someone to write articles? This girl seems sharp, and she's a high school graduate. Perfect fit. Chief Zhang slapped his thigh. You're right. I didn't even think of that. Xiao Xiao, can you write? I smiled modestly. I used to write publicity drafts for my teachers at school. I also won first prize in the city-level essay competition. The original Yi Xiao Xiao actually did have decent writing skills. And I myself had graduated from a top university in my first modern life. Writing a few propaganda pieces would be child's play. The director got even more interested. Perfect timing. The factory needs someone to write profiles on our advanced workers. Let her try it out. My father and Wang Xiufan exchanged surprised looks. They had only expected to get me some low-level job. They never imagined I'd land an office position. Everything moved fast after that. By late morning, all the paperwork was done. I was officially a cadre in the machinery factory's propaganda department, earning 32 yuan a month with full benefits. Wang Xiufan stared at the brand-new work ID and felt a complicated mix of emotions. She had held this job for 12 years, and now it was gone, just like that. She told herself it was temporary, but deep down she wasn't so sure. My father was pleased. A propaganda department job was respectable and easy. It would look good when arranging the matchmaking with Director Lee. Maybe they could even push the bride price higher. Only I knew the truth. Once this job was in my hands, it was never going back. Take care of yourself and the baby, stepmother, I said with a sweet smile, tucking the work ID into my pocket. Leave the factory work to me. Wang Xiufan forced a smile.
Do a good job.
Don't embarrass us. The moment we stepped out of the personnel office, I dropped the act. I took my work ID and walked away without another word. I had gotten exactly what I wanted. My father remembered the matchmaking date with Director Lee was tomorrow, so for once he was willing to spend money on me. He had Wang Xiufan hand me 10 yuan. Go buy some decent clothes, he ordered. Tomorrow you're having dinner with Director Lee at the state-run restaurant. Don't embarrass me, Wang Xiufan added. Get a dress. Director Lee likes seeing girls in dresses. Pick something bright and colorful. I held the 10 yuan and laughed inside. This family was actually investing in me to get a better sale price. 10 yuan was no small amount, half a month's wages for a regular worker. Enough to buy a very nice outfit. How am I supposed to buy clothes without fabric coupons? I pushed my luck. And I'll need to eat lunch outside, so give me some more money and food stamps too. My father signaled Wang Xiufan with his eyes. She reluctantly pulled out another 5 yuan and some ration coupons. The second the money touched my hand, I stuffed it in my pocket and walked out without looking back. I could hear Wang Xiufan huffing angrily behind me. The department store was packed with people. I wandered around casually, looking at this and that, not in any hurry. Honestly, whether it was my modern life or my 1,000 years in the immortal realm, I had seen far more beautiful clothes than anything here. These dull, era-appropriate outfits didn't impress me at all. I stopped at the fabric counter, thinking maybe I'd just buy some cloth and make something myself, when a grating voice cut through the noise behind me.
Ye Shao Jiao?
What are you doing here? I turned around. There was Shin Baozhu, hanging on Feng Yuan's arm, staring at me in surprise. Baozhu had dressed up today, a brand new floral dress, rouge on her cheeks, bright red lipstick. Feng Yuan was wearing pressed trousers and a crisp shirt, his hair slicked back with oil. They looked like a picture-perfect couple if you could overlook the fact that their whole relationship was built on betrayal. Who gave you money to go shopping? Baozhu let go of Feng Yuan's arm and marched up to me, her voice sharp and accusing. Did you steal money from Mom? I couldn't be bothered with her. I gave her one glance and started to walk away. She grabbed my arm. Don't you walk away. I asked you a question. Let go, I said, my eyes cold as blades. Not until you explain yourself, she raised her voice even higher. There's no way Mom gave you money for shopping. You must have stolen it. I'm telling Dad. Then Feng Yuan strolled over, playing the protective boyfriend. Xiao, Baozhu is your older sister. Is that any way to talk to her? He frowned at me with a scolding look. Baozhu always tells me you bully her. I see now she wasn't exaggerating. You'd act like this even in front of me? I actually laughed out loud. I shook off Baozhu's hand and looked Feng Yuan dead in the eyes. Who do you think you are? You had a marriage agreement with me, and then you went behind my back with my stepmother's daughter? You two are shameless, sneaking around together without any proper arrangement. A pair of cheating lowlifes. My voice wasn't loud, but in the crowded store it landed like a bomb. The noise around us died instantly. Every eye in the place turned toward us. Shop clerks stopped what they were doing. Customers drifted closer, craning their necks for a better view. Feng Yuan's face turned bright red. You're talking nonsense. Am I? I raised an eyebrow and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. Want me to pull out the marriage contract? It has my name on it, Yi Xiao, in black ink. Not Shin Baozhu's. Baozhu stomped her feet and burst into tears on cue. Brother Yuan, don't listen to her. She's just jealous of us. She's been jealous of me since we were little. Jealous? I scoffed. Jealous of what? Your shamelessness? Your talent for stealing other people's fiancés? Baozhu, have some dignity. You took someone else's man, and you're actually proud of it. The crowd started buzzing. Whispers flew in every direction. So the guy was originally engaged to the younger sister. He looks so proper, but he does something like this. The other girl is no good either, stealing her own sister's fiancé. Feng Yuan's ears were burning. He grabbed Baozhu's hand. Let's go. Don't waste time on this crazy girl. I wasn't about to let them escape that easily. I raised my voice. Running away? We're not done talking. Feng Yuan, be honest. Wasn't it your parents and my mother who made the engagement? Didn't you change your mind the moment you saw Baozhu? Feng Yuan stuttered and couldn't form a sentence. The engagement was real. The betrayal was real. But having it spelled out in public like this was unbearable. He tried to sound calm. Xiao, let's be reasonable. Baozhu and I fell for each other naturally. Even though we had an agreement, I always thought of you as a little sister. You and I were never going to happen. That actually made me laugh, a real laugh full of contempt. I looked him up and down like I was examining something disgusting. You mediocre, self-important fool. Where do you get the confidence? You think I would ever want you? Do you not own a mirror? Go find a puddle and take a good look at yourself. The whole crowd burst out laughing. I paused, then drove the nail deeper. Even if you were free, I wouldn't take you. Don't flatter yourself with this little sister nonsense. Save it. Now get out of my sight, both of you. Feng Yuan's face cycled through every shade of red and white. He couldn't say a word. Baozhu was bawling her eyes out, playing the victim as always. Under the laughter and stares of the crowd, Feng Yuan dragged the sobbing Baozhu out of the store. They looked absolutely pathetic scrambling away. I watched them go with a cold snort. My mood for shopping was ruined, so I headed home. On the way, I kept thinking about something. Shin Baozhu was supposed to be the female lead of this novel, right? So why was she so weak? All she could do was cry and act pitiful. Zero fighting ability. How did someone like that become the heroine? Was the author blind? Or maybe, I thought, because I transmigrated here and changed the plot, her protagonist Halo stopped working. That thought put me in a great mood. Whatever the reason, I didn't care. I was never someone who played by the rules. Since I was in this world now, I was going to live it my way. That evening, the Feng family showed up at our door. All three of them. Vice Director Feng sat in the main seat with a serious face. His wife sat next to him in a fancy floral dress, looking very full of herself. Feng Yuan stood behind his parents, eyes darting around, unable to look at me. Jiang Wo, we're here about the children. Vice Director Feng got straight to the point. Feng Yuan and Baozhu are in love, and we support them. But first, we need to settle the matter of the marriage agreement with Xiao Xiao. My father nodded eagerly. Of course, of course. Xiao Xiao, go get the marriage contract. I was sitting on a stool in the corner, cracking sunflower seeds like I didn't have a care in the world. I looked up with a half-smile. The marriage contract? Why would I give it to you? Feng Yuan's mother's face hardened. Xiao Xiao, what kind of attitude is that? The engagement is being cancelled, so the contract needs to be destroyed. Cancelled? I raised an eyebrow. Did I agree to that? Feng Yuan couldn't help himself. Xiao Xiao, things are already like this between us. The engagement is meaningless. Why do you have to make this difficult? I'm making this difficult. I let out a cold laugh. Your family showed up at my house tonight demanding the contract, and somehow I'm the one causing problems. I stood up and looked around the room, letting my gaze settle on Vice Director Feng. You want the contract back?
Sure.
But you think you can just walk in here, say a few words, and take it? Nothing in this world is that easy. Feng Yuan's mother turned red with anger. What do you want? That engagement was just between your mother and me. No gifts, no tokens, just the paper. We cancel it. We tear it up. Simple. I snorted. Actually, you know what? Let's forget the whole cancellation. I don't mind either way. I can marry Feng Yuan. It's not like I'd lose anything. And if Feng Yuan wants to keep seeing Baozhu while still engaged to me, that's fine too. I won't stop him. And oh, Feng Yuan jumped forward. I want to marry Baozhu. Baozhu was crying prettily in the corner, tugging on Wang Xiufin's sleeve. Mama. Wang Xiufin tried to smooth things over. Xiao Xiao, stop being difficult. Feng Yuan and Baozhu love each other. Just let them be happy. I glanced at her. Let them be happy? Why should I? When they were sneaking around behind my back, did anyone think about making me happy? Now you want the contract, and suddenly it's all about being generous. Vice Director Feng was a man who had seen plenty of negotiations. He held his wife back and asked calmly, Xiao Xiao, name your price. I smiled and held up one finger. Now that's more like it. It's simple, 1,000 yuan. Compensation for the years I've wasted, and the price for dissolving the engagement. 1,000? Feng Yuan's mother shrieked. Have you lost your mind? My father and Wang Xiufin were shocked too. 1,000 yuan was enormous. 2 full years of a worker's salary. I sat back down and went back to cracking seeds. Too much? Then we don't cancel. I'm not the one in a hurry. Feng Yuan grabbed his mother's arm. Mom, just agree. Once the contract is destroyed, I'm free to marry Baozhu. His mother was shaking with rage. But that's 1,000 yuan. Where would we even get that kind of money? Vice Director Feng studied me with dark eyes. Xiao Xiao, this is extortion. Extortion? I smiled pleasantly. Vice Director Feng, let's not use such ugly words. Your son broke his promise, abandoned his fiancée, and chased after another woman. That caused me tremendous emotional suffering. A little compensation seems perfectly fair, don't you think? I paused, then added meaningfully, besides, you're the vice director of the whole factory. If word got out that your son was stringing along 2 women and dumping the original fiancé, that wouldn't look great for your reputation, would it? That hit the mark. I already knew Vice Director Feng was competing for the factory director position. The last thing he needed right now was a scandal. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. 1,000 yuan. But you guarantee that once the engagement is cancelled, you stay away from Feng Yuan. I waved my hand dismissively. Relax. I have 0 interest in your son. The moment I have the money, the contract burns. His wife wanted to argue more, but Vice Director Feng cut her off. We'll go home and get the money together. We'll be back in 3 days. He stood and walked out without looking back. His wife shot me a venomous glare, then pulled Feng Yuan along after him. After the Feng family left, the living room went dead silent. Then my father erupted.
Xiao Xiao.
Are you insane? 1,000 yuan? How dare you ask for that much? Wang Xiufin piled on. What if the Feng family backs out? Baozhu's marriage would be ruined. I looked at them coldly. Ruined? How is that my problem? When Baozhu was stealing my fiancé, did anyone worry about ruining things for me? Baozhu cried even harder. Xiao Xiao, how can you be so cruel? Brother Yuan and I truly love each other. True love, I scoffed. Does true love mean you can throw away morals? Does true love mean you can hurt other people and not care? Baozhu, your version of love is pretty cheap. I stood and looked at all of them. Let me make this clear. That 1,000 yuan is mine. If anyone tries to mess this up for me, they'll regret it. I went back to my room and left them sitting there staring at each other. Once inside, I took out the old marriage contract from my space. The writing was still clear on the yellowed paper. The Feng family and the Yi family join in matrimony. Feng Yuan and Yi Xiaoxiao are engaged to be married upon reaching adulthood. At the bottom were the signatures, Feng Yuan's father and my mother, Yi Lan, along with a bright red thumbprint. I traced my mother's name with my finger and felt something complicated stir inside me. The original owner's mother had been such a remarkable woman. How did she end up choosing the Feng family? Why did she agree to this foolish engagement? Well, at least it's useful now, I thought with a cold smile. A perfect excuse to squeeze the Feng family dry. I had done my homework. Vice Director Feng was gunning for the top position at the factory. He couldn't afford any scandals right now. This 1,000 yuan, he had no choice but to pay. 3 days later, the Feng family came back. This time, Vice Director Feng carried a thick envelope. 1,000 yuan. Count it. He dropped it on the table, his expression dark as a storm cloud. I opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of crisp, brand new 10 yuan bills. I counted every single one carefully, then nodded with satisfaction. The contract, Feng Yuan's mother asked impatiently. I pulled the marriage contract from inside my shirt and waved it in the air, so everyone could see. Then RIP, I tore it in half and tossed the pieces on the floor. The engagement is officially cancelled. Feng Yuan exhaled like a drowning man finally breaking the surface. He immediately grabbed Baozhu's hand. Baozhu, we can be together now. Baozhu burst into happy tears and buried herself in his arms. I watched this little love scene with ice-cold eyes, tucked the money into the envelope, and said flatly, I have what I came for. You can all leave now. Then I walked to my room without giving any of them another glance. Sunday at the state-run restaurant was busy. The dining hall was packed with people, the air thick with the smell of food and the noise of conversation. My father had picked a table by the window where he could watch the entrance. He kept fiddling with his collar, nervous and excited at the same time. Wang Xiufan was whispering to Baozhu and Jiakong, be smart. Don't say anything stupid. I watched this whole performance with cold amusement. I knew exactly what today was, a carefully staged, accidental meeting, all designed to sell me off to Director Li. Right on schedule, a man in a white shirt with slicked back hair walked in. He was in his 40s, short, pudgy, with a round belly sticking out. His small eyes swept across the restaurant with a calculating look. This was Director Li from the Revolutionary Committee. My father jumped to his feet, pretending to be surprised.
Director Li.
What a coincidence. You're eating here too. Director Li played along perfectly. Old Shen. What a coincidence indeed. Why don't you join us? My father said eagerly. We just ordered. The more the merrier. Director Li's gaze scanned our table and locked onto me and Baozhu. His eyes lit up like a dog spotting meat. Oh, I couldn't impose. Nonsense. My father was already waving down a waiter. Bring another set of bowls and chopsticks. And so the great staged encounter began. Once seated, my father made introductions. Director Li, this is my daughter Xiao Xiao. He put extra weight on the word daughter, making his intentions obvious. Director Li looked me up and down, nodding like he was inspecting livestock. Very nice. I hear Xiao Xiao works in the factory's propaganda department? Good writing skills. I managed a thin smile, but said nothing. I could feel his disgusting gaze crawling over me like he was pricing merchandise. My father quickly introduced everyone else. This is my wife Xiufan, my son Jiakong, and Baozhu. When he mentioned Baozhu, he was deliberately vague, clearly not wanting Director Li to pay her too much attention. But it was too late. Director Li's eyes had already drifted to Baozhu. I had to admit, As the novel's original female lead, Baoju did look good. She was wearing a pink polyester blouse today that made her skin look pale and smooth. She had curves in all the right places. Compared to me, thin and flat as a board, she definitely looked more womanly. "And where does Comrade Baoju work?" Director Lee asked with a sly smile, his eyes nearly disappearing into his chubby cheeks. Baoju lowered her head shyly. "I don't have a job yet. I help with housework at home." "What a waste for such a lovely young woman to be stuck doing housework," Director Lee said with exaggerated sympathy. "Want me to arrange a job for you?" My father quickly cut in. "Director Lee is too kind. Let's eat first, eat first." The meal was painfully awkward. Director Lee's eyes kept bouncing back and forth between me and Baoju. He was clearly interested in both of us. One minute he'd ask me about my writing, the next he'd compliment Baoju on how domestic she was. Everyone else at the table might as well have been invisible. What made my stomach turn was where his eyes kept wandering. He kept staring at places no decent man should stare. At one point, he, accidentally, dropped his chopsticks and bent down to pick them up, deliberately lingering near Baoju's legs for several seconds. The surprising part? Baoju seemed to enjoy the attention. She kept playing with her hair and giving Director Lee coy little smiles every time he looked at her. A perfect White Lotus performance. I was so disgusted I gave up watching and just focused on eating. The food was good, and I wasn't about to let it go to waste. Consider it my appearance fee for showing up to this circus. My father was sweating bullets, desperately trying to steer the conversation back to me. "Director Lee, Xiao Xiao recently wrote a propaganda piece that all the factory leaders praised." "Oh? Is that so?" Director Lee responded absently, his eyes still glued to Baoju. Wang Xiufin was secretly pinching Baoju under the table, trying to get her to tone it down. But Baoju was completely lost in the thrill of being admired and ignored her mother entirely. Jiakong, as usual, noticed nothing. He was too busy stuffing braised pork into his mouth, piece after piece. The meal finally ended. Director Lee wiped his mouth with satisfaction and told my father, "Old Shin, you're a lucky man. 2 such outstanding daughters." My father laughed awkwardly. "You're too kind, Director Lee, too kind." When it was time to say goodbye, Director Lee shook everyone's hand. When he got to me, he squeezed extra hard and stroked the back of my hand. When he got to Baoju, he held on and wouldn't let go until my father coughed loudly. The walk home was dead silent. My father's face was dark as iron. Wang Xiufin looked worried. Baoju, somehow, was still smiling to herself, basking in the afterglow of all that attention. The second we got inside, my father turned to me. "So? What did you think of Director Lee?" "Nothing," I said flatly. "I refuse." He immediately panicked. "You said if we transferred the job, you'd go to the matchmaking. How can you go back on your word?" I raised an eyebrow. "I said I'd go to the matchmaking. And I went. I never said I'd agree to marry him just because I showed up. You." My father was so angry, he couldn't form words. His finger pointed at me, shaking.
You.
"You." Wang Xiufin jumped in. "Xiao Xiao, how can you do this? Director Lee is such a great catch. You'd be a director's wife." "What's wrong with that?" I smirked. "If he's so great, why not marry your own precious daughter to him?" She seemed pretty willing at dinner. I let that hang in the air with a knowing smile. Baoju shot up from her seat. "I would never. Director Lee is so old." "Oh," I raised an eyebrow. "Now he's old? You didn't seem to mind at the table. All that hair flipping and batting your eyelashes. I thought you two were the couple." Baoju's face turned bright red. "That's a lie. I didn't do any of that. You know what you did." I looked at her coldly. "But as for me marrying that old pervert, absolutely not. Not a chance." My father slammed the table. "You don't get to decide. I say you're marrying him, and that's final." I met his eyes without flinching. "Then let's see what happens." I turned and went to my room, slamming the door behind me. In the living room, I could hear Wang Xiufin's worried voice. "What do we do now?" Director Lee was obviously interested in Baoju too. "What if he?" My father waved irritably. "There is no what if. Xiao Xiao is the one marrying him. Baoju is marrying Feng Yuan." Baoju's voice rose in panic. "Exactly. I'm not marrying the disgusting old man. Just looking at him makes me sick. Another rest day morning, Wang Xiaofeng got up early and threw herself into cooking. The kitchen was full of sizzling and frying sounds, and the whole house smelled amazing. But there was something off about it, something fake. I watched it all with cold eyes. I already knew what today was. This family meal was a trap set up by my father and Wang Xiaofeng. Sure enough, after breakfast, Wang Xiaofeng started shooing Jiakong and Baozhu out of the house. Go play outside. Eat lunch out. Don't come back until later. They were confused. But Mom, you cooked all this good food. Why are you sending us away? Wang Xiaofeng's face darkened. I said go, so go. Stop asking questions. They left reluctantly. I sat in the yard, soaking up the sun, a faint cold smile on my lips. The show was about to begin. Right around noon, Director Lee arrived, right on schedule. He had dressed up for the occasion and was carrying a box of pastries, a carton of cigarettes, and 2 bottles of liquor, like a future son-in-law coming to impress the family.
Director Lee.
Welcome, welcome. My father practically ran to the door, his face split into the biggest, most disgusting grin. Wang Xiaofeng scurried around pouring tea and playing the perfect hostess. Watching these two grovel made my stomach turn. The table was loaded with food, braised pork, sweet and sour fish, white-cut chicken. Rare dishes for this era. My father had even opened a bottle of white liquor and was personally pouring for Director Lee like a servant. Xiao Xiao, pour a drink for Director Lee, Wang Xiaofeng said, handing me the bottle with a meaningful look. I took the bottle and noticed her hands were trembling slightly. I smiled inside. Here it comes. I poured Director Lee a full glass without showing any reaction. Then Wang Xiaofeng picked up my cup and poured me a drink, supposedly just a regular beverage. She checked it carefully, making sure the liquid looked normal, then set it down with a satisfied expression. Director Lee, a toast. My father raised his glass. Thank you for looking after our family. Director Lee clinked glasses with a greasy smile, his eyes constantly sliding toward me. After a few rounds of drinks, Wang Xiaofeng started pushing. Xiao Xiao, drink your beverage. Don't just sit there. I picked up the glass, brought it to my lips, then set it back down. Not thirsty. My father started sweating. It's so hot today. How can you not be thirsty? Just drink. Director Lee chimed in. Yes, Comrade Xiao Xiao, have some. Cool yourself down. I laughed inside. Could they be any more obvious? Did they really think I was stupid? That drink was clearly drugged. I decided to toy with them. I picked up the glass, brought it close, then put it down again. Over and over. My father and Wang Xiaofeng squirmed in their seats each time. At one point, I deliberately let the glass slip in my hand, almost spilling it. Wang Xiaofeng nearly leaped out of her chair. After I had my fun, I finally gave in to their nagging and drank the whole glass in one go. Of course, I didn't actually swallow a drop. I transferred every bit of that drugged liquid into my space the moment it touched my lips. I was going to need it later. I feel a little dizzy, I said weakly. I think I need to lie down. My father and Wang Xiaofeng exchanged a thrilled look. Yes, yes. Go rest right away. I staggered to my room, closed the door, and instantly dropped the act. My mind was perfectly clear. I spread out my spiritual sense and monitored everything outside. Just as I expected, I heard my father say, Director Lee, my wife, and I need to step out for a bit. Would you mind keeping an eye on Xiao Xiao for us? Director Lee smiled knowingly. Don't worry. I'll take good care of her. Footsteps. The front door creaked open and shut. They were gone. Through the crack in my door, I watched Director Lee rubbing his hands together, a disgusting look on his face, walking toward my room. Little sweetheart, here I come, he muttered under his breath as he pushed my door open. The instant he stepped over the threshold, I struck. A precise chop to the back of his neck, fast as lightning. He didn't even get a chance to make a sound before he crumpled to the floor like a sack of rice. You thought you could take advantage of me? I snorted. I grabbed him and dragged his unconscious body into my father and Wang Xiaofeng's bedroom, then tossed him onto their bed. I was about to head out to find Baozhu when the yard gate suddenly creaked open. Baozhu had come back on her own. It's so hot out there, she complained, walking in while fanning herself. Mom makes all this great food and then tells me to eat outside? Makes no sense. My eyes lit up. Heaven sends you a road and you refuse to take it. Hell has no door but you walk right in. I crept up behind her without a sound and knocked her out the same way, one clean strike to the neck. Since you're so eager to climb the social ladder, I said coldly, let me help you. I pulled out that drugged drink from my space, every drop I had saved. I pinched Baoju's nose open and poured it all down her throat. Then I dragged her into the master bedroom and laid her on the bed right next to Director Lee. I looked at the two unconscious figures side by side and smiled. What happens next is up to fate. I gently closed the bedroom door and walked out of the house. I strolled around the compound, chatting casually with the neighborhood aunties and grannies for a while. Then I mentioned I needed to pick something up from the factory. The aunties watched me walk out through the compound gate, looking perfectly normal and relaxed. I took my time at the factory, strolling around nice and slow. I stopped at the guard station first. Old Zhang was reading his newspaper and looked up with a smile. Comrade Yi, working on a rest day. Hi, Mr.
Zhang, I said sweetly.
I just remembered I need to double-check a number in my propaganda article. Go into the records room real quick. I wandered through the factory grounds, making sure to chat with a few coworkers along the way. Then I headed back toward the housing compound at a leisurely pace. The whole trip took over an hour. Plenty of time for certain people to finish their business. Back at the compound, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I sat under the old locust tree and joined a group of Annies who were chatting and preparing vegetables. This was the busiest time of day. Everyone was out socializing. Xiao Xiao, I heard you're writing articles at the factory now. How impressive, Aunt Lee said while sorting her greens. I smiled modestly. Just propaganda pieces. Nothing special. On the surface, I was happily gossiping with the aunties. Underneath, my spiritual sense was spread wide, monitoring every movement inside the Shun house. Soon enough, I saw my father and Wang Xiufan sneaking back through the gate, barely able to contain their excitement. They tiptoed inside, faces glowing with triumph. Then they heard sounds coming from the bedroom, the kind of sounds that made the situation very clear. It worked, my father whispered excitedly. Now she has no choice but to agree. Wang Xiufan was beaming. Exactly. We'll be family with Director Lee. Maybe you'll even get a promotion out of this. They stood there grinning at each other, already lost in their daydreams of power and money. My father was picturing his big promotion. Wang Xiufan was calculating how much profit this marriage would bring. Then a piercing scream came from the bedroom. HHH, followed by sobbing. The smiles froze on their faces. That voice. It sounded awfully familiar. Wait. Wang Xiufan's face changed. That sounds like... They looked at each other and saw the same panic reflected back. They shoved open the bedroom door. What they saw nearly killed them on the spot. On the bed, tangled together with no clothes on, were not me and Director Lee, but their precious darling Shin Baozhu and Director Lee. Baozhu. Wang Xiufan let out a blood-curdling scream and almost fainted. My father stood frozen in the doorway like he had been struck by lightning. He couldn't move.
He couldn't speak.
That's when I arrived, right on cue, with the group of aunties trailing behind me.
Dad. Mom.
I'm home. I called out cheerfully. Then I let my face shift to shock. Oh my, what's going on? I made sure my voice was loud enough to make every auntie behind me crane her neck to look inside. And they got an eyeful. Baozhu and an older man, naked on the bed. The scene was impossible to miss. Heavens! Isn't that Baozhu? Who is that man, in broad daylight? What are they doing? The gossip erupted instantly, voices overlapping from every direction. Baozhu woke up to the screaming, saw the crowd of faces staring at her, and let out an even more terrified shriek. She grabbed the blanket and pulled it over herself, sobbing hysterically. Get out. Everyone get out. Don't look. Director Lee was dazed and confused. He clearly remembered going after me. So how did he end up with Baozhu? Nothing made sense. My father finally snapped out of it and tried to chase the neighbors away. Leave. Everyone out. Nothing to see here. But it was far too late. Everyone had seen everything. and gossip like this would spread through the compound faster than fire. I put on my best horrified expression. What happened? Baozhu, you and Director Li. I trailed off deliberately, leaving everyone's imagination to fill in the blanks. After a painful struggle, my father managed to push all the neighbors out and slammed the door shut. His face was the color of iron as he glared at the two people on the bed. What is the meaning of this? Director Li had recovered by now. His original target had been me, but Baozhu was young and pretty too, so in his mind, he hadn't exactly lost out. He straightened his clothes and put on a responsible expression. Old Shen, what's done is done. I'll take responsibility for Baozhu. I'll come with a formal marriage proposal in the next couple of days. Wang Xiufan was wailing. My Baozhu, your purity is ruined. How will you ever marry now? Baozhu had fully woken up and understood what had happened. She broke down completely, screaming and crying.
No.
I won't marry this old man.
Dad. Mom.
Save me. I'm your real daughter. Director Li's face hardened. Baozhu, you can't talk like that. We've already been intimate. I must take responsibility. Don't worry, I won't treat you badly. Then he looked at my father with a meaningful expression. Old Shen, we'll be family now. You can count on my support at the factory. The implication was crystal clear. My father's furious expression softened slightly. The plan had gone wrong, but maybe the result wasn't so terrible after all. I won't marry him. Baozhu kept screaming. I refuse to marry an old man. Director Li's eyes went cold. You don't have a choice. What's done is done. You will marry me. He finished dressing, gave a satisfied nod, and walked out of the Shun house. At the door, he glanced at me one more time with a look of faint regret, like he was disappointed he hadn't gotten the dish he originally ordered. The house was in ruins. Baozhu was crying so hard, she could barely breathe. Wang Xiufan was weeping beside her. My father stood in the middle of the room, face dark, saying nothing. I watched the whole scene without a shred of sympathy. Every bit of this was their own doing. Dad, Mom, what exactly happened? I asked with wide, innocent eyes. Why was Baozhu with Director Li? Shut up, my father roared. This was your doing. Me? How could it be me? I blinked. I was out the whole time. I went to the factory, and everything. All the aunties can back me up. My calm, sweet tone made my father's blood pressure skyrocket. He pointed at the door. Get back to your room. Now. I shrugged and walked away. The second my door closed behind me, a victorious smile spread across my face. From the living room, Baozhu's desperate cries kept going. I don't want to marry that old man.
Please save me.
I'm your own daughter. Wang Xiufan held her, crying along. My poor Baozhu, why is your fate so cruel? My father paced back and forth, then slammed the table. Stop crying. What's done is done. Crying won't fix anything. Director Li said he'll take responsibility. That's the best outcome we're going to get, but Wang Xiufan tried to protest. No buts, my father snapped. This is settled. I lay in my room, listening to it all, my smile growing wider and wider. Through the thin wall, I could hear every word of the Shen family's meltdown. Wang Xiufan was clutching my father's sleeve, sobbing so hard she could barely get words out. We can't let you Xiao get away with this. Look what she did to our Baozhu. My father yanked his arm free, irritated.
What's the point of saying that now?
The priority is dealing with Baozhu's situation. I'm the workshop director. If this spreads any further, I'll never live it down. In the corner, Baozhu was curled up on the bed. Her pink shirt was wrinkled, and there were red marks visible on her neck. She suddenly screamed, sharp and desperate. I won't marry that old man. Make Yi Xiao marry him. She's the one you arranged it for. My father spun around and snapped at her. You already slept with Director Li. If you don't marry him, who's going to want you? He's a revolutionary committee leader. You think you get a choice? I want to marry Brother Yuan. He promised to marry me, Baozhu sobbed, twisting her shirt in her fists. My father let out a bitter laugh. He grabbed his enamel mug, took a big gulp of water, and slammed it back down. You think Feng Yuan will still want you after he finds out about Director Li? Even if he's stupid enough to say yes, do you think his parents would accept a daughter-in-law with this kind of reputation? Baoju's mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. She looked helplessly at her mother. Wang Xiaofan rushed to her daughter's side and held her tight. Then she looked up at my father. Let's just keep this quiet. Pretend it never happened. Rush the wedding with Feng Yuan. And send Yi Xiaoxiao to marry Director Li. That was the original plan anyway. My father gave her a cold look. You think those old ladies I just kicked out are going to keep their mouths shut? By now, half the compound probably knows Baoju slept with Director Li. You'd better just pray they don't make it sound even worse than it is. I smiled to myself on the other side of the wall. When I heard Wang Xiaofan still scheming to push me onto Director Li, I almost laughed out loud.
Dream on.
Your own daughter can enjoy the consequences of your brilliant plan. So what do? Wang Xiaofan cried. We can't really let Baoju marry a man in his 40s. He's almost as old as you. Funny how she never thought about that when they were planning to sell me, and I was a whole year younger than Baoju. What choice is there? My father lit a cigarette and took a long drag. It's already done. All those people saw it today. You can't deny it. It was Yi Xiaoxiao. Baoju suddenly screamed. She set this up. I came home, and then I just blacked out. I don't remember anything after that. I chuckled silently. Even if they suspected me, so what?
No proof.
And the drugged drink had been prepared by their own dear mother. How could they explain that? What good does it do to say that now? My father barked. Whether Xiaoxiao planned it or not, it was you in that bed with Director Li, and a whole crowd of people saw it. Can you argue your way out of that? He crushed his cigarette and stood up. I'm going to talk to Director Li. See if there's any room to negotiate. Negotiate what? Wang Xiaofan asked hopelessly. He's not going to pretend it didn't happen. You don't understand, my father snapped. Director Li is a leader. He cares about his reputation. After today's scene, he can't deny it either. But I need to feel out the situation and at least get something good out of this. Baoju suddenly leaped up and ran for the door. I'm going to find Brother Yuan. He'll believe me. He said he'd love me no matter what. My father grabbed her so hard she yelped in pain. Sit down and stay put. Haven't you embarrassed us enough? You are not leaving this house until this is settled. But I'm the victim, Baoju wailed. Victim? My father laughed coldly. Who in this compound is going to believe that? They'll say you're a shameless girl who seduced a leader. The spit alone will drown you. Wang Xiaofan's eyes suddenly lit up with a new idea. What if we say it was actually Yi Xiaoxiao on the bed? I snorted quietly. This woman never learns. Are you blind? My father shot back. Baoju and Xiaoxiao don't look anything alike. Different height, different body. And Director Li himself knows who he was with. Are you going to argue with him too? Then maybe we say Xiaoxiao disguised herself as Baoju. Wang Xiaofan was grasping at straws. Enough! My father slammed the table. You want to make this even messier? The best thing now is to get the wedding done fast. The longer we wait, the more people talk. Director Li may be older, but his position is good. Baoju won't have a bad life with him. Baoju let out a wail that could shatter glass, ran into her room, and slammed the door. Wang Xiaofan started crying again. My poor Baoju. How did things end up like this? My father rubbed his temples. Stop crying. I'm going to Director Li's house. You stay here and watch Baoju. Make sure she doesn't do anything stupid. I lay on my bed, listening to it all, perfectly content. Every scheme they had built to ruin my life had come crashing down on their own heads instead. The drug they prepared for me went into their daughter's mouth. The man they picked for me ended up with their precious Baoju. And now the whole neighborhood knew. They wanted to sell me? Fine. Let them watch their own daughter pay the price. Around 4:30 that afternoon, Feng Yuan came back to the housing compound. I wasn't there to see it myself, but my spiritual sense let me watch the whole thing unfold like a movie. The moment he walked through the compound gate, he noticed something was off. The aunties sitting under the locust tree went quiet the second they saw him. They tried to look away, but couldn't help stealing glances, that mix of pity and curiosity that told him something bad had happened. Aunt Zhang, Aunt Li, what are you chatting about? He asked with a forced smile. They looked at each other nervously. Aunt Li finally mumbled. Oh, nothing much. You should head home. He started walking, but caught pieces of their whispered conversation drifting behind him. Never would have thought. She seemed so proper. Director Lee is almost 50. His gut tightened. Then, turning a corner, he overheard two young women talking openly. Is it true? Shun Baozhu and Director Lee? Caught in bed together. Absolutely true. Auntie Lu saw it with her own eyes. Said Baozhu was naked, crying her heart out. Oh my god. What about Feng Yuan? Aren't they together? What can he do? He's been given a green hat. And Baozhu acted so innocent all this time. Feng Yuan's whole world spun. His hands went weak and his bicycle crashed to the ground. He didn't bother picking it up. He just ran straight to our house. He pounded on the door. Wang Xiufan cracked it open with a stiff smile. Oh, Feng Yuan. What brings you here at this hour? Auntie, where's Baozhu? I need to see her. He tried to look past her, but she blocked the view. Baozhu isn't feeling well. She's sleeping. Maybe come back tomorrow? I just need 1 minute. A few words and I'll go. She really can't. Wang Xiufan started, but crying sounds leaked out from inside. Is that Baozhu crying? Feng Yuan's face went pale. What's wrong with her? Before Wang Xiufan could stop it, the inner door flew open and Baozhu came running out, throwing herself into Feng Yuan's arms. Brother Yuan, I don't want to marry anyone else. I only want to marry you. She was shaking and sobbing, her eyes swollen like walnuts, tears covering her face. Feng Yuan caught her instinctively. Baozhu. What people are saying out there. Is it true? His voice came out dry and cracked. Baozhu looked up at him with those tearful eyes. No. I was set up by Yi Xiaoxiao. I didn't want any of it. She grabbed his shirt like a drowning person clutching a rope. Are you going to throw me away? Do you not want me anymore? Looking at her crying face, Feng Yuan's heart melted. This was the girl he had liked since they were kids. He remembered watching movies together at the factory cultural center, dancing at the workers' club, secretly holding hands in the little grove behind the factory grounds. Those memories washed over him and pushed aside his doubts and anger. Don't cry, Baozhu. I won't abandon you. He sighed and pulled her close again. I noticed her body stiffen for just a second, then relax. She buried her face in his chest and cried even harder, but behind his back, the corner of her mouth curved up in a sly little smile. Typical Baozhu. Even now, she was playing him. Wang Xiufan watched the two of them with a complicated expression, not sure whether to speak or stay quiet. Meanwhile, my father was coming back from Director Lee's house. Unlike the anxious man who had left, he was practically skipping home, a smile playing on his lips. At first, Director Lee had played coy, hinting that Baozhu had thrown herself at him. My father swallowed his anger and smiled along. Young people make mistakes. But now the whole compound is talking. It's bad for both Baozhu's reputation and yours, Director Lee. Director Lee sipped his tea calmly. Old Shun, let's be straight with each other. I'm a responsible man. But my wife only passed a few months ago. Remarrying so quickly might look bad. They went back and forth like this for a while, dancing around the real issue. Finally, they got down to business. Director Lee offered 2,000 yuan as a bride price. In this era, that was an astronomical sum, enough to buy a decent house. On top of that, he promised the 3 rounds and 1 sound, a sewing machine, a bicycle, a watch, and a radio. That was the ultimate wedding package in the 1970s. But what really made my father's heart race was what Director Lee whispered next. The old factory director was about to be transferred. Vice Director Feng would likely move up to the top spot, which meant the vice director position would open up. Director Lee said he could pull some strings. My father practically floated home. Vice director, a position he had never dared dream of. Once he had that title, nobody could ever say Shin Zhengwo only got where he was because of his dead first wife's family connections. He pushed open the front door and froze when he saw Feng Yuan and Baozhu in each other's arms. He frowned for a moment, then Wang Xiufan rushed over, pulling him into the kitchen. What happened? What did Director Lee say? She whispered urgently. My father told her everything. Her eyes got bigger with every detail. When she heard 2,000 yuan, she gasped. When she heard about the wedding gifts, she covered her mouth. When she heard about the vice director position, she nearly fell over. Is this real? Oh heavens, her voice was trembling with excitement. Director Lee really does value our Baoju. Just like that, all her earlier grief and outrage evaporated. Her mind was already spinning with calculations. How much of the bride money to use for Baoju's dowry, saving the wedding gifts for their son's future marriage, setting something aside for the unborn baby. But wait, she glanced toward the living room where Feng Yuan was still comforting Baoju. What about Feng Yuan? He really seems to want to marry her. My father scoffed. Feng Yuan? His father is just a vice director who might not even get promoted. How does that compare to Director Lee? Lee has connections in the Revolutionary Committee, real power. But the boy genuinely cares about Baoju, Wang Xiufan said, showing a rare flicker of conscience. Can genuine feelings pay the bills? My father said dismissively. Besides, everyone knows about Baoju and Director Lee now. You think the Feng family would accept a daughter-in-law with this kind of scandal? Feng Yuan is acting on impulse. Once he calms down or his parents get involved, he'll back off. Wang Xiufan thought about it and decided her husband was right. She peeked into the living room. Feng Yuan was still whispering comfort to Baoju, and Baoju seemed to be enjoying every second of the attention. So, what do we do? Tell Feng Yuan directly, Wang Xiufan asked. My father thought for a moment.
Not yet.
Let Baoju keep him on the hook for now. If anything goes wrong with Director Lee, we'll still have a backup plan. Wang Xiufan nodded with understanding. The two of them exchanged a conspiratorial smile, already seeing their glorious future laid out before them. I listened to all of it from my room and shook my head.
These people never changed.
They had just watched their daughter's life get destroyed by their own scheming, and here they were, already scheming again, this time to sell her even more profitably. 2,000 yuan had washed away every tear Wang Xiufan had shed. The vice director title had erased every ounce of my father's fatherly concern. And poor Baoju, clinging to Feng Yuan as her lifeline, had no idea her own parents were already planning to cut that rope. Late that night, the housing compound sank into darkness. Only a few dim street lamps swayed in the autumn wind. I lay in bed, watching the old clock on the wall. When it struck 12, I moved. I changed into dark clothes and reached out with my senses, following the spiritual energy mark I had secretly left on Director Lee's body earlier that day. It led me to a courtyard house, much fancier than the Shen family's place. Tall, neat brick walls. Heavy gate locked tight. I jumped over the wall like it was nothing and landed without disturbing a single leaf. Since reaching the second level of qi refining, I couldn't fly on a sword yet, but my body was light as a swallow. The courtyard was well organized. 3 main rooms, with 2 wing rooms on each side. My spiritual sense told me Director Lee was in the east room of the main building, his bedroom. From the west room came an old person's coughing and a child mumbling in their sleep. That must be his parents and kids. I held my breath and formed hand seals. A thin thread of spiritual energy spread outward like invisible fog, settling over the entire main building. The coughing in the west room faded. The snoring in the east room deepened into heavy, even breathing. Everyone was now in the deepest sleep possible. I crept to the east room window and peeked through a gap in the curtain. Director Lee's fat body was sprawled across a double bed. The room reeked of alcohol, and his snoring was like a saw cutting wood. I popped the window latch and slipped inside. The room was decorated far too nicely for an ordinary government worker. Right in front of me stood a carved redwood wardrobe, beautifully crafted. I opened the doors. Inside hung rows of polyester shirts, mouse suits, and wool overcoats, with neatly folded clothes stacked below. Living pretty well, aren't you? I smirked. One wave of my hand, and the entire wardrobe, clothes and all, vanished into my space. Next was the wide double bed. I gave Director Lee's sleeping body a disgusted glance, then searched the nightstand. The first drawer held everyday items. The second drawer was locked. That wasn't going to stop me. I gathered a tiny bit of spiritual energy at my fingertip, and the lock popped open. Inside were several thick stacks of 10 yuan bills. I did a quick count, over 5,000 yuan. I took every last bill. Under the bed was a heavy metal box. I dragged it out and opened it. More stacks of cash. A rough count put it close to 20,000 yuan. There were also all kinds of ration coupons, grain tickets, fabric tickets, meat tickets, industrial vouchers, and even rare television and bicycle purchase permits. My eyes lit up. No more worrying about coupons, ever again. Everything went into my space. I kept searching. In the corner stood a tall chest of drawers with 5 levels, each one stuffed full. The first drawer held documents, mostly ordinary factory paperwork, nothing special. The second had photos and letters. I set those aside to look at later. The third drawer made me hold my breath. It was full of gold and silver jewelry, gold necklaces, gold rings, jade bracelets, pearl necklaces, all gleaming softly in the dim light. Stolen from people, no doubt, I murmured and swept them all into my space without a second thought. The fourth drawer held several high-end watches, Shanghai brand, Plum Blossom brand, and even a rare Omega. The fifth drawer was a collection of oddities, an ivory cigarette holder, tortoiseshell glasses, a purple clay teapot. All clearly expensive. I stood in the middle of the room and looked around one more time. My eyes landed on a portrait of Chairman Mao hanging on the wall. It was slightly crooked, and the wall behind it seemed a different shade than the rest. I moved the portrait aside. Just as I suspected, a hidden compartment. Inside was a wooden box. I opened it and found dozens of small gold bars. In the 1970s, this was an unthinkable fortune. A regular worker earned 30 or 40 yuan a month. Director Li's corruption was on a scale I hadn't imagined. I swallowed my shock, placed the wooden box into my space, and continued the sweep. The ceramic tea set on the desk, taken. The grandfather clock in the corner, taken. Even that heavy redwood double bed didn't escape. I rolled Director Li off it and onto the floor, then made the whole bed disappear. If I could see it, I took it. With the east room cleaned out, I moved to the living room. It was impressive. A set of 8 immortals table and chairs sat in the center, all carved from fine redwood. I ran my hand across the table, smooth, warm wood with exquisite craftsmanship. Definitely not ordinary furniture. One wave, and the entire set vanished. Against the wall stood a display shelf packed with decorative pieces. Each one had a refined quality about it. I wasn't sure if they were genuine antiques, but anything in Director Li's house was probably obtained through shady means. All taken. Below the display shelf was a glass cabinet holding bottles of Maotai liquor and Chunghwa cigarettes. I had no personal interest in alcohol or tobacco, but I took them anyway. Then I noticed the standing radio in the corner seemed oddly heavy. A normal Red Lantern brand radio shouldn't weigh this much. I examined the bottom and found another hidden compartment, stuffed with cash and foreign exchange certificates. Another unexpected windfall. After cleaning out the living room, I moved to the study. The room was actually quite tasteful, one whole wall covered in bookshelves. Most of the books were political texts and technical manuals, but on the top shelf I spotted something different. Thread-bound ancient books. I carefully took one down. The yellowed pages read, Collected Commentary on the Analurta. I opened it, a Qing Dynasty edition. The next one was a copy of Records of the Grand Historian, a Ming Dynasty printing. These were genuine cultural treasures. My anger burned hotter. These books had obviously been seized from some intellectual's home during a raid. A crude man like Director Li couldn't possibly appreciate ancient literature. He was just hoarding stolen goods. I stopped examining them one by one. With a wave of my hand, the entire bookshelf and all its contents vanished into my space. The desk drawers held documents and notebooks. I took those too. Maybe there was evidence of his crime somewhere in the pile. In the corner of the study sat a blue and white porcelain jar with several scroll paintings inside. I unrolled one and nearly gasped, a Su Beihong galloping horses painting. The next one was a Qi Baishe shrimp painting. I wasn't an art expert, but the quality was clearly far beyond any imitation. This parasite. I hissed through my teeth and carefully stored the paintings away. I was about to leave the study when my spiritual sense detected something unusual underground. I stopped and focused. There it was, a hollow space beneath the floor. I crouched down and tapped the floor tiles. One of them echoed differently. I found the edge, pried it up, and revealed a set of stairs leading down. I scanned with my spiritual sense first, no danger. Then I pulled a luminous pearl from my space, a treasure I had collected in the immortal realm. Its soft glow lit up the dark passage. The stairs were short. At the bottom was an underground room, roughly 20 square meters. When the pearl's light filled the space, I sucked in a sharp breath. Redwood display shelves lined every wall, packed with antiques, bronze vessels, porcelain, jade carvings, Buddhist statues. Every single piece radiated age and enormous value. In the center sat over a dozen large wooden crates, neatly stacked. I opened the nearest one, and the gleam nearly blinded me. A full crate of gold bars. I opened several more. 2 crates of silver coins. 3 crates of porcelain. 1 crate of jade pieces. 2 crates of ancient books. And 1 crate of jewelry, pearl necklaces, emerald bracelets, ruby rings, all sparkling under the pearl's light. I stood in the middle of this underground vault, my emotions churning. How many families had been robbed to fill this room? How many years of corruption did this represent? A single Revolutionary Committee director had stolen this much? I didn't hesitate. I swept everything into my space. After making sure I hadn't missed anything, I took one last look around the empty chamber. I almost couldn't wait to see Director Lee's face when he discovered this tomorrow. I was about to leave when my spiritual sense picked up one more thing. Behind a pile of discarded wooden crates, there was a tiny bump on the wall, almost invisible, blending perfectly with the brick seams. Without spiritual scanning, no human eye would ever notice it. Another hidden compartment. I smiled and moved the junk aside. The bump was the size of a bean, the same color as the surrounding brick. I pressed it with one finger.
Click.
A section of brick the size of a small book slid inward and shifted to the side, revealing a secret alcove. The mechanism was brilliantly designed. Inside were a stack of documents and several letters. I picked up the documents first and read them by the light of my luminous pearl. The more I read, the deeper my frown became. These were equipment modification blueprints from the machinery factory. But based on the markings, they were only partial, incomplete sets. So Director Lee is even stealing factory secrets, I thought, alarmed. If these blueprints fell into enemy hands, the consequences would be catastrophic. I set down the blueprints and picked up the letters. Some of the paper was yellowed with age. To my shock, several letters were written in Japanese. I couldn't read them. But the Chinese letters were clear enough. They documented Director Lee's communications with certain officials. As I read through the Chinese letters, my blood ran cold. They didn't just discuss factory secrets. They contained government policy decisions and even military defense positions. These letters proved beyond any doubt that Director Lee wasn't just corrupt, he was selling national secrets. This traitor, I was shaking with rage, my fingertips white from gripping the papers. I had thought he was just a greedy official. I never imagined he was a spy. I immediately stored every document and letter in my space. This evidence had to be protected at all costs. I scanned the entire underground room one final time with my spiritual sense. Nothing left behind. Only then did I relax slightly. Back upstairs in the East Room, Director Lee was still snoring away, drool hanging from the corner of his mouth, completely unaware that his life was about to collapse. I gathered a thread of pure spiritual energy at my fingertip and sent it into the room, deepening the sleep of everyone in the house. "Sleep well," I whispered with a cold smile. "When you wake up, the show begins." This energy would keep the entire household unconscious until noon the next day, more than enough time for me to handle the evidence. Under the cover of darkness, I moved through the silent streets like a ghost and arrived at the police station. A light was on in the guard booth by the gate, where one officer was dozing at his desk. I pulled an invisibility talisman from my space and stuck it on myself. My body melted into the night. I hopped over the wall and walked straight to the station chief's office. I checked with my spiritual sense, nobody nearby. A tiny pulse of energy, and the lock clicked open. I slipped inside and gently pulled the door shut behind me. The office was simple: a desk, a chair, a filing cabinet, a portrait of Chairman Mao, and a national flag on the wall. I walked to the desk and took out the documents and letters from my space. I arranged them neatly in the most visible spot on the desk. To make absolutely sure the chief would see them first thing in the morning, I placed the letter about military secrets on top, spread wide open. The contents were shocking enough to make anyone's heart stop. When everything was in place, I locked the door again and left without a trace. I drifted away from the police station and disappeared into the fading night. By the time I reached the Shun family compound, the eastern sky was turning pale with the first light of dawn. I climbed over the wall silently, slipped back into my room, changed out of my dark clothes and into my nightgown, and lay down as if I had never left. Staring at the ceiling, I couldn't calm my mind. I had gone to Director Lee's house planning to teach him a lesson and rob him blind. I never expected to uncover something this serious. A spy ring, stolen national secrets, evidence of treason. Tomorrow is going to be very interesting, I murmured, a meaningful smile crossing my face. By this time tomorrow, Director Lee will probably be sitting in an interrogation room. Right now, in the police chief's office, those deadly documents and letters were lying on the desk, waiting quietly for morning, waiting to unleash a storm that nobody saw coming. I closed my eyes and began to cultivate. Tomorrow was going to be a spectacular day, and I was not going to miss a single moment of it. The next morning, the sun rose over the housing compound like any other day. The loudspeaker played, "The East is Red," and workers wheeled their bicycles out to start their shifts. At the police station, Chief Zhao Weiguo walked into his office at exactly 7:30. He was a tired-looking man in his 40s, wearing a washed-out police uniform. He pushed open his door, glanced at his desk out of habit, and froze. A neat stack of documents sat right in the middle. Documents he had definitely not left there. "Xiao Zhang," he called out. "Did anyone come into my office this morning?" The young officer ran in. "No, Chief. I was the first one here." The door was still locked. Chief Zhao frowned and picked up the papers. On top was a handwritten report detailing Director Lee's crimes, treason, selling national secrets. The deeper he read, the darker his expression became. "Bring these to the meeting room. Get the political instructor and old Wang in here now." Half an hour later, the station's leadership was gathered around a table, passing the documents between them. The political instructor spoke first. These materials appeared out of nowhere. Could someone be framing Director Lee? Doesn't matter who sent them or whether they're real or fake, Chief Zhao said firmly. We investigate first, and we secure the suspect before he can run. At 9 o'clock, Chief Zhao personally led a team of 12 officers to Director Lee's courtyard house. They surrounded it completely. "Knock," Chief Zhao ordered. An officer banged on the door. No response. He banged harder. Still nothing. "You think he ran?" the instructor asked nervously. Chief Zhao's face hardened. "Break it down." 2 strong officers rammed the painted gate. After a few hits, the bolt snapped. They rushed in with weapons drawn and found the whole place eerily quiet. The main door was half open. Chief Zhao signaled everyone to be careful and pushed it the rest of the way. What they found stunned them. Director Lee and his entire family were still sound asleep. Lee himself was on the floor snoring. No bed in sight, just him sprawled on the bare ground. His elderly parents and 2 children were knocked out cold in the west room. "It's almost 10 o'clock. Are they all still sleeping?" Xiao Zhang said, confused. They shook Director Lee awake. It took a long time. When he finally opened his eyes and saw a room full of police officers, the color drained from his face.
"Zhao?
What is the meaning of this?" he stammered, scrambling to his feet. "Director Lee, we need you to come to the station to assist with an investigation," Chief Zhao said, his expression blank. "Investigation? Of what?" Director Lee's voice shot up. "This is illegal. Breaking into a citizen's home. I'll report you to the city committee." Chief Zhao didn't flinch. He nodded to his officers, and they took Director Lee and his family away. Director Lee screamed and protested the entire time. His 2 children were crying in terror. By the time they marched him out, a crowd of early risers had already gathered in the distance to watch. The news flew across the entire city in minutes. I had gotten up early that morning and stepped outside to find the compound buzzing with people. They say Director Lee was arrested by the police. A woman whispered excitedly. Really? Why? No idea. But a whole squad of officers surrounded his house. I stood at the edge of the crowd, listening to all the speculation, feeling a deep calm settle inside me. Everything was falling into place. Wang Xiufan came running back, out of breath. It's bad. Director Lee was taken away by the police. That announcement hit the crowd like a rock thrown into still water. What? Arrested? Why? Did he commit a crime? Everyone swarmed around Wang Xiufan. She panted and said, I don't know the details. I just saw them take his whole family away. Lots of people saw it. I stood quietly to the side, watching everyone's reactions. Some were shocked. Some were curious. A few had a gleam of satisfaction in their eyes, people who had probably suffered under Director Lee's power. Then my father arrived, his face ashen. What happened? What's going on with Director Lee? Wang Xiufan grabbed his arm and whispered. The police took him. They searched his house. My father's face went white as paper. He stumbled and had to grab the wall to keep from falling.
How?
How could this happen? I could see clearly what was in his eyes. Not worry for Director Lee. Not sympathy. Pure panic and despair. The look of a man watching his dreams shatter. The vice director position. The 2,000 yuan bride price. The glorious future. All gone in an instant. Let's talk at home, he said, trying to stay composed, and pulled Wang Xiufan toward the house. I followed slowly behind them, listening to Wang Xiufan babble about what she had seen. Back inside, my father collapsed into a chair, lit a cigarette with trembling hands, and took a deep drag. It's over. It's all over, he muttered to himself. Wang Xiufan still hadn't caught on. What's over? What does Director Lee's arrest have to do with us? You don't understand anything, my father suddenly exploded. He promised to help me get the vice director position. Now that he's fallen, that's finished. Wang Xiufan's eyes went wide as she finally understood.
Then,
what about Baoju's marriage? The bedroom door burst open and Baoju came running out, her face bright with joy.
Mom.
Is it true? Director Lee got arrested. Wang Xiufan sighed. It's true, but don't look so happy about it. People will talk. Why shouldn't I be happy? Baoju was practically bouncing. I don't have to marry that old man anymore. I'm going to find Brother Yuan. My father slammed the table. Sit down and behave. Haven't you humiliated us enough? Baoju flinched. But Dad, you were the one forcing me to marry him. Now he's gone. I can marry Brother Yuan. You think the Feng family will still want you? My father laughed bitterly. You slept with Director Lee. The entire compound knows. What family would accept a daughter-in-law like that? Baoju's face went ghost white. But it was Yi Xiaoxiao who set me up. Who's going to believe that? My father said coldly. Director Lee is finished now. Nobody is going to vouch for you. You'd better pray Feng Yuan still has feelings for you. Otherwise you'll be an old maid. Baoju sank into a chair, the reality finally hitting her. But she quickly pulled herself together. Brother Yuan said he wouldn't abandon me. He'll definitely marry me. Wang Xiufan looked at her naive daughter and couldn't hold back tears. My foolish girl. You really think you can trust what a man says? I watched all of this unfold from the doorway, silent and still. Every scheme they had built was now rubble. The bride price gone. The promotion gone. The powerful son-in-law sitting in a police interrogation room. And Baoju, who was supposed to be the novel's golden heroine, was now the girl the whole city knew had slept with a corrupt traitor old enough to be her father. I turned and went back to my room, closing the door quietly behind me. The news of Director Lee's arrest hit the compound like a boulder dropped into a lake. Rumors swirled everywhere, and every single one of them stung the Shin family. My father was so afraid of people asking about Baoju and Director Lee that he called in sick and stayed home. He sat in his old rattan chair all day, chain-smoking, filling the ashtray with cigarette butts. Wang Xiufan paced back and forth, checking the yard, sighing, sitting down, standing up again. It's over. All of it. My father mumbled, crushing another cigarette. The vice director position, the 2,000 yuan bride price. All gone. Wang Xiufan sighed along with him. Then suddenly her eyes brightened. Wait, do you remember? When the Feng family canceled the engagement, they paid 1,000 yuan. That money is still with Xiao Xiao. My father shot upright in his chair, a greedy light flickering in his dull eyes. That's right. The 1,000 yuan. How did I forget about that? They looked at each other, and I could practically see the greed dripping from their faces. 1,000 yuan was a fortune in this era, and they couldn't stand the thought of me having it. But Wang Xiufan hesitated. That money was compensation the Feng family paid to Xiao Xiao. Will she hand it over? My father snorted. She eats our food and lives under our roof. She has no right to hoard money. Besides, it's not safe for a young girl to carry that much cash. We're doing this for her own good. Wang Xiufan nodded eagerly. Exactly. We're just keeping it safe for her. With their little plan ready, they marched to my door. My father knocked so hard, I thought his fist would go through the wood. I opened the door and looked at them calmly. What do you want? My father coughed and tried to look fatherly. Xiao Xiao, let's have a talk. Wang Xiufan spoke first. Fake smile stretched across her face. Xiao Xiao, that 1,000 yuan from the Feng family's engagement cancellation. It's not safe for a girl your age to keep so much money. Why don't you give it to us for safekeeping? I looked at her for a moment, then laughed. Safekeeping? Do you think I'm 3 years old? My father's expression darkened. Watch your tone. We're looking out for you. What if that money gets lost or stolen? Exactly, Wang Xiufan jumped in. Things have been so unsafe lately. Director Li's house was robbed. We all need to be careful. I let a mocking smile cross my face. Stepmother, stop dreaming about my money. If you really need cash that badly, hurry up and get Baozhu married off. Then you can collect her bride price. That was a direct stab to the wound. Wang Xiufan's face twisted instantly. How dare you? Baozhu is your sister. Sister? I laughed coldly. I don't have a sister who tried to push me into a fire pit. And a stepmother's leftover baggage doesn't get to call herself my sister. My father slammed the table so hard everything on it jumped. How dare you speak to your mother like that? I met his eyes without blinking. My mother died years ago. The woman standing here is just an outsider trying to get her hands on her stepdaughter's money. Wang Xiufan was shaking with fury, pointing right at my nose. You ungrateful brat. If we hadn't taken you in, you'd have starved on the streets. Now you've grown bold enough to talk to me like this. My eyes were cold as winter. Taking me in? You mean making me sleep in a storage closet? Eating your leftovers? Serving your entire family like a slave? That's what you call taking me in. Wang Xiufan couldn't find a comeback. She switched to her backup move, wailing. Look at this, husband. This is the wonderful daughter you raised. What sin did I commit to deserve this? My father's face went iron dark.
Ye Shao Jiao.
You will hand over that money today, whether you like it or not. You don't run this household, I smiled, the kind of smile that made them both uncomfortable. So now that Director Li's money train has derailed, you're coming after mine? You two really are desperate. Wang Xiufan completely lost control. If you hadn't ruined Baozhu, none of this would have happened. This is all your fault. And you dare mock us? I let my voice drop to ice. Do you actually believe that? Who prepared the drug drink? Who invited Director Li to the house? Who sent the children away so they wouldn't see? If you hadn't been scheming to sell me to that old man, Baozhu would never have ended up where she is. If you want someone to blame, look in a mirror. Those words landed like a hammer. Both their faces went chalk white, as if I had just ripped open a secret they thought was buried forever. You're making things up, Wang Xiufan sputtered, but her eyes wouldn't stay still. My father raised his hand to hit me, his face twisted with shame and rage. I'll beat you to death for spreading lies. I didn't dodge. I stepped forward and looked straight up at him. Go ahead. Hit me. Let the whole compound come watch how Director Shin treats his own daughter. And while they're here, I'll tell everyone exactly how you plan to drug me and hand me over to Director Li. His hand froze in midair. He couldn't bring it down, but he couldn't put it away either. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. The timid, obedient Yi Xiao Xiao who never fought back. That girl was gone. Standing in front of him now was someone with steel in her eyes and not an ounce of fear. You. He ground out through clenched teeth. You really have gotten bold. I looked at them both without warmth. That 1,000 yuan is my compensation for a broken engagement. Nobody touches it. I let my gaze drift over their ashen faces. Instead of worrying about my money, you should figure out what to do about the mess Baozhu is in. The whole compound knows she slept with Director Li. I'd love to see which decent family would still take her. That was the final blow. Wang Xiufan's legs gave out, and she crumpled to the floor, sobbing hysterically. My poor Baozhu. What's going to become of her? My father looked at his crying wife, then at me standing there unmoved, and something inside him seemed to break. Everything he had schemed for was dust. The promotion, the bride money, the powerful connections, all destroyed, partly by his own disappointing daughter, partly by me, the stepdaughter he had tried to sell. Get out, he rasped. All of you get out. I raised an eyebrow. You're the ones who should leave. This is my room. He glared at me with pure hatred, then pulled Wang Xiufan to her feet and stumbled out the door. From outside came Wang Xiufan's fading sobs, and then Baozhu's voice.
Mom.
What happened? Did Yi Xiaoxiao bully you again? I smiled coldly. Baozhu still thought she was the family princess. She had no idea her own parents were tearing their hair out trying to figure out what to do with her ruined reputation. I sat on the edge of my bed and started thinking about my next move. I had punished the Shen family enough. It was time to leave this broken house and start building my own life. Late that night, the compound was quiet under the moonlight. I sat cross-legged on my bed, eyes half closed, fingers forming seals. A thin thread of spiritual energy flowed from my body and spread like mist across the entire Shen household. One by one, every person in this house sank into deep, unbreakable sleep. When I was sure they were all out cold, I opened my eyes and smiled. So you still want my engagement money? I whispered.
Fine.
Let me show you what it really feels like to lose something. My first stop was my father and Wang Xiufan's master bedroom. It was the best room in the house, spacious, bright, furnished with a matching set of solid wood furniture. I recognized those pieces immediately from the original owner's memories. That furniture was my real mother Yilan's wedding dowry. And this shameless man had used his dead wife's dowry to furnish his home with his new woman. I made a mental note. When I leave this place, every last piece of my mother's furniture comes with me. I scanned the room and went straight to the big redwood wardrobe. Inside hung my father's and Wang Xiufan's clothes. Nothing fancy, but not a single patch on any of them. At the very bottom of the wardrobe was a hidden compartment. Inside it, I found a hardwood box. Locked, of course, but a tiny pulse of spiritual energy, and the lock popped right open. Inside were neatly stacked bills, over 100 yuan, plus various ration coupons, grain, fabric, meat, and even a few rare industrial vouchers. That's it? I frowned. This couldn't be everything. Knowing my father's personality, there had to be more. I swept the box into my space and sent my spiritual energy outward like a spider's web. Almost immediately, I felt something beneath the floor under the bed, another hidden compartment. I used spiritual energy to slide the bed, with both sleeping people still on it, to the side. Then I pried up the floor tile. Underneath was a metal box, heavy in my hands. When I opened it, I almost couldn't believe my eyes. Thick stacks of crisp 10-yuan bills, roughly 5,000 yuan by my quick count. Next to the cash lay 10 small gold bars, glinting in the moonlight. But what made my blood boil was what I found at the bottom. Jewelry. A jade bracelet with beautiful clarity. A pair of finely crafted gold earrings. A ruby ring. I recognized every single piece from the original owner's childhood memories. Her mother used to take them out and admire them. After Yilan died, they all vanished. Now I knew where they went, stolen and hidden by her own husband. You miserable thief, I hissed through clenched teeth. You took the compensation money from her death, took her job, and now I find out you even stole her jewelry. I forced myself to stay calm and kept searching. At the very bottom of the box was a brown paper envelope containing a bank passbook and an old, yellowed notebook. The passbook showed a balance of over 3,000 yuan. In the 1970s, that was staggering, 6 or 7 years of a regular worker's total income. But the notebook was the real find. Page after page of entries in my father's handwriting. May 12, 1973, sold 200 jin of scrap iron, received 60 yuan. August 3, 1973, sold 50 jin of copper parts, received 125 yuan. February 15, 1974, sold 2 electric motors, received 240 yuan. This wasn't scrap disposal. I worked in the factory's propaganda department now. I knew exactly how waste materials were handled. These scrap iron and copper parts and electric motors were perfectly good factory equipment. My father had been stealing and selling state property for years. The last few pages listed names and numbers, records of how the profits were split between accomplices. My hands were trembling. In this era, stealing national assets was a serious crime. People got executed for less. So that's how you saved up so much money, I murmured. I took everything, cash, gold bars, jewelry, the passbook, and most importantly, the notebook, and stored it all in my space. Then I carefully replaced the floor tile and moved the bed back into position. Not a trace left behind. I stood in the middle of the room, thinking, this evidence could destroy my father completely. But I couldn't report him yet. Legally, I was still his daughter. If he went down right now, it could splash back on me. First, I needed to officially cut ties with the Shun family. Then, I could bring him to justice. Enjoy your freedom a little longer, I said with a cold smile, and quietly left the room. Next, I visited Baoju's room. After I had kicked her out of the original room, Wang Xiufan had set up this spare room for her, nicely decorated, warm and cozy. Meanwhile, the real Yi Xiaoxiao had never been allowed to live in any proper room. She had been stuck in a storage closet. In Baoju's wardrobe, I found a small leather wallet containing over 80 yuan in cash and a collection of ration tickets. I almost whistled. That was nearly 3 months of my salary. Where did an unemployed girl get that kind of spending money? Obviously from her doting parents. The family treasure indeed, I said sarcastically, and took it all. Finally, I checked Jiakong's room. Simpler than the others. In his nightstand, I found an iron box holding just over 200 yuan in neat bills. Every single person in this family has savings. I shook my head. Every single one, except the original Yi Xiaoxiao, who didn't have a single coin to her name. I took his money too. Back in my room, I laid out the night's haul. Over 5,300 yuan in cash, 10 gold bars, a collection of gold and jade jewelry that belonged to my real mother, a bank passbook, and 1 deadly little notebook. Combined with everything I had taken from Director Li's house, I now had more than enough wealth to live comfortably in this era for the rest of my life. But the most valuable item wasn't gold or cash. It was that account book. When the time was right, it would be the key to bringing Shun Zhengwo down for good. I lay back on my bed and smiled, imagining tomorrow morning, when the Shun family woke up and discovered that every last yuan had vanished from their hiding spots. The chaos was going to be spectacular. I could hardly wait.